Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 74, our big Crown of Swords finale. I am your host Mo, and I'm joined as always by my half-healed friends Jody.
Good morning, everyone.
You sound half-healed. And Willie.
I'm not half-healed. I'm fully healed since our last episode. So ready.
I'm loving Willie's energy. He is champing at the bit.
We are complete opposites today.
I'm
not going to talk a lot until it's my chapter. That you're not going to hear anything from me. Maybe snoring.
Well, guys, we've done it. Another book in the books, I guess.
I suppose. I thought you were going to say in the toilet.
Not at all. I mean, I read some of it in the toilet, but that's not relevant. We are, as Willie said before this recording, halfway through our journey into book 7 of 14. And how long has it taken us? 2.5 years.
2 years, 5 months, and 23 days.
It feels so much longer than that.
I didn't count that. I just made that up on the spot.
That sounds very accurate.
That's why it feels longer, because it is.
I think we started in June, and it's now almost the end of the year. So it's about 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Okay, so we're looking at a 5-year project here.
Yeah, initially we said this would be a 5-year project, and I thought, I haven't done anything but raise children for 5 years longer, or anything longer than that. But besides raising children, I don't think there's a stage where I even had a plant that old. Okay, now that's changed, but...
Wow, what a journey.
The rambles. Yeah.
This also marks the spot where, for me, was the first time I finished a book and there wasn't another one waiting. Book 8 was the one that I had to wait for to be published before I could continue with the series. Where was that point for you guys?
No, look, I started reading it way behind you guys. So the first book that I got, I didn't get from, it wasn't gifted to me. It was book 9, bought for a friend of mine by his mom, who didn't know that there's a series, just saw New York bestseller and bought book 9. He was like, fuck this shit, chucked it in the corner. I was like, cool, give me that book. And that was my first book that I got, because you said read Wheel of Time. I got Wheel of Time book 9, and that was what just came out. So,
okay.
Oh God, I don't remember when this was. This was probably 2003, about there, 2002, I would say.
Call back. When was Winter's Night published? I couldn't tell you. How about you, Joe?
Book 10. And I went book shopping with you, actually. It was in a bookshop in the mall in PE.
Okay.
I can't remember which shopping mall it was.
What was that place called? Fantastic Books?
Probably. That sounds
was
familiar.
it Fantastic Books or something fantastic? A girlfriend that worked there at a stage.
Where were the Ster-Kinnick
Yeah, right across
the
from
bridge.
the cinemas. No, in Warmer Park.
Not the bridge.
Green Acres.
Warmer
Park.
It wasn't Warmer.
Okay.
They had the best bookshop right across the movies. Yeah, Lishka worked there.
Oh, yeah. That going into a bookshop and looking for the next Wheel of Time book is such a often repeated and vivid memory. Like, I remember that feeling, like doing a quick scan. Okay, where's the fantasy section? Walking through, only a book. Okay, cool. And leaving. I mean, ever since I finished book 7, that was something that I did periodically for years and years and years.
Just think about how much our lives have changed in terms of finding out information. We didn't have to walk to the shop to see if something was out. Like, we really did that. We would walk to the DVD shop or the Blockbuster to see if that movie is out,
and go
or
see.
walk to the bookshop to look if that book is out. No internet.
I know.
Or there was.
Seems
weird.
like
Africa
an
was just
alternate
dark.
reality. It still is.
Now, Billy, I was saying that just Moritz talking about like going to bookshops and looking for stuff. It was book 9 that I found when I was in London in a tiny bookshop, probably as wide as my bathroom. And I went to the back. I can remember it clearly. The whole back wall was a bookshelf, and I found book 9, and in brilliant hardcover condition. And I was like, "What?" And it was like, I don't know, like £2 or something ridiculously cheap.
Nice. What's
And
it?
it's still
Book
my
9
shop
is
to this
Winter's
day.
Heart. Am I right? I think it's Winter's Heart. Yes. You know, I'm not good with the book names. Like, they just go book.
Neither am I.
Eye of the World, The Great
Yeah.
Hunt, The Dragon Reborn, and then some books. And then at the end, there's a Memory of Light.
Knife of Dreams. I have no idea what number that.
No,
book
that
is.
book's name is Knife
That's
Hands.
11?
Sure, Moritz.
Hands.
Knife hands.
Time for being a broken record again, but the encounter in the final chapter happened quite differently to how I remembered. I don't know about you guys.
I have a note on that.
Okay, good. I
Me too.
I remembered Rand blasting Sammael with balefire, but no, that's not quite it.
No.
Well, there was a lot of balefire used, so
There was.
I can understand.
Yeah, there's things that, and I mean, we're going to talk at length at this, but I do not remember this ending. I have listened to this ending because I said initially I was going to jump ahead and just roll with it. The problem that I found is I wasn't concentrating the same way I would do in prepping. So I would drift
Yeah.
off while I'm sidetracked in a conversation while working or something, and then get back to it. And then
Yeah.
I realized I'm not really listening and none of it makes sense. So I stopped doing that. And then I listened to it like intently and with a book in front of me and reading as I'm listening. And I didn't understand the end still. I was confused by it. Like, I was very, very confused by it now. I was confused by it back then. That's why I think I don't remember anything around it. And I had to go and Google a lot of explanations to that last chapter in the end to get a better understanding of how and what killed Sammael. So we'll get to it.
All right. We will.
Yeah. I'll.
Haha. Yes, Jody will. He'll explain everything. He'll make it clear as day.
Yes. For sure.
But before Jody explains anything, I better explain myself in today's double serving of everyone's favorite section called Callbacks. First up, Willie, you told me that you had a callback you wanted to do and that I should remind you.
Thank you. Callbacks. I have a callback. Not just one. I've got two. Because I did, like,
I love it.
Today is a big Wheel
so
of Crown
proud.
Day. I'm so amped for finale day that it's been since 7:30. It's the thing that's consumed me, but it raised a lot of questions because I listened to a back catalog episodes, reading, just a day full of it with no TV. Fane, Mordeth, the relationship with Mash and Shin, Mashadar, the relationship with True Evil.
Whoa.
We delved into that Fane create the bubbles of evil and used it as his cover to attack.
Well, the fog. We said we didn't think it was a bubble of evil, but did Fane create the fog?
Yes. What if there is levels and there is uncontrollable chaos? Then you get to the Dark Lord, his minions, the Forsaken, and the Shadow Spawn. But they are all in a level of control. There's control throughout all of that. It's organized chaos. And then you have the light, the good, that is the opposite of the organized chaos. Mash and Shin and Mashadar, we know, falls outside of that organized chaos. It's an older, worse thing. If the boar had weakened the Dark One's prison, could the boar have weakened the prison of other things, other worlds, at the same time during the same event? Because Fane hates the good evils, which I'm going to refer to the Forsaken bunch.
The good evils.
The evil with
the known evils.
Yeah, the evil with structure. Fane is not structured. He's chaos. He's pure chaos. So could he have manifested out of that when he became Mordeth and the connection between Shadar Logoth, Mash and Shin, and Mashadar, could that have affected him that he can actually summon things out of that domain, like the chaoticness that's out there? Because it doesn't make sense that happened right there and then. A bubble of evil, because it was random in its natures in the past. But what if that randomness can also be summoned? Like, yes, it's permeating through the boar and the seals. it with the Dark One, these things are permeating through as well. But because it's got a different origin that Mordeth is connected to, that he can control that things. Because we know that the Black Wind and Masha and Shin doesn't affect him at all. So
No. I mean, to give you a pretty short response, I think so.
yeah.
I have always thought that whatever that fog thing was more related to Mashadar specifically, and Mordeth and the evil from Aradol and that sort of stuff. We've actually got a call back from an old favorite listener, which speaks directly to this, because what we said was that the fog is very Mashadar-like. Fane seemed totally unfazed by it, and he was also present, obviously, before the fog was there. He dashes off when Rand arrives, and then later this fog arrives, right? Like, so it's all very convenient. And then Fane also runs off cackling into the fog again. What we said last time is that these creatures forming out of the fog is very different from just the sort of dumb Mashadar, right? Like the senseless being that Mashadar is when it's in Shadar Logoth, as we'll get to in Jody's chapter later as well. But now, what I think it was Jody himself that said last time that, well, Fane is now controlling it, and therefore it's giving him some stuff. It's Richard Jackson that wrote in about it, and he's got his own theory that when Fane encountered Mash and Shin, he absorbed or blended some of that with himself as well, and that this manifestation of Mashadar is blended with Mash and Shin and Payton Fane. So it's like all these other things like acting together, just sprinkling more flavor on where it comes from. Vil, we don't know.
Or the actual white fog that rolls in at Shadar Logoth and rolls in at the point when they at this tent in this specific scene, the silk tent, is the same thing. And what is in it is that it is a gateway to something else. It's the hands, like a three-fingered hand came through and grabbed someone, like weird stuff, big stuff. Like it's a different realm
huge.
of evil. Like it's so beyond explanation.
I think it was Gerald that also wrote in, like, it reminded him of Stephen King's Fog, The Fog, you know, like there's also like huge creatures in it, and it's like, it's a blurring of realities, like two worlds are coming together, and these creatures are coming from another realm in this fog. This fog is like the harbinger of these other beings. Now, in Shadar Logoth, the fog itself, as when we get to Leah and her demise in Shadar Logoth later, a tiny tendril of the fog is touching her, and she's already convulsing and stuff.
Yes.
Where here, the fog within which these creatures are, the fog doesn't seem to be affecting anyone, because it's not like Rand and Catswain and Min and those guys are moving around in a bubble where there is no fog. They're in the fog. So that fog is touching them and not having the effect of Mashadar. So it's a bit different. It's weird. I think the only thing I can say, at least for my own headcanon, is that I think it is linked to Fane. It's certainly not exactly the same as Mashadar, but I like this idea of it all being linked, and Fane absorbing some of what Mash and Shin is and what Mashadar is, becoming something new altogether. And like you said, chaotic and definitely from another realm, right? This is not this is not from this realm.
This is not from this area.
It's not Sidin and Sidar. It's not the True Power. It's not Shadowspawn as we know them. It's not random enough to, for me, fit a bubble of you. It's not like weapons flying around and inanimate objects moving and sort of the laws
chairs
of
coming alive. Bubbles of air is like
that sort of
chair
thing.
coming alive and being a spider and eating you. And it's like, it's not things that come out. It is things around you that change.
The thing and manifesting.
Now, the other callback that I'll quickly jump to, because I'm not going to suck up all your callback time, Alviaran's motives. When Elida fucked up, like she does with everything she touches.
Which time? Be more specific.
Yeah, no, and I'm gonna really dial in on this one. She really stuffs up in trying to capture Rand, and everything goes down at Dumas Wells. And Alviaran holds on to this information, and then eventually confronts Elida with it and tells her the whole story when the one sister came back. Okay, that was a prompt. Like, okay, I know this, but that sister arriving back at the tower, whatever her name was, fucking something.
Yeah.
That then pushes her hand, like, look, okay, cool, we got to talk about this now. But she knows that this has got the power to dispose Elida and still her. And we know the last time Amrylin got disposed and stilled, what happened to a keeper? She got disposed and stilled as well.
With her.
With her. So is some of this motives around her not manipulation but survival? Like, shit, if I don't take charge, I will be outed of my position of power. If I don't fix this, I'm fucked. Like, yes, the Dark One might save me, but I'm not the keeper to the Amrylin anymore then.
No, he won't. Yeah.
I'm just thinking this through as you say it. I mean, certainly if Elviaran was the one to bring this information to the hall or something, she could plead innocence, right? She could say, I've outed this plot, because it was hatched between Elida and Galina. Elviaran wasn't involved in that plot at all. I mean, not on the surface level anyway. They are, like, Galina reports to Elviaran on the Supreme Council of the Black Archer, right? So, like, they could have been having that conversation anyway.
I get that, but at the same time, Leanne did also. She wasn't involved with Swan and Moraine's dealings and plans and everything. So she wasn't so... Leanne, the keeper to Swan.
Oh, yes.
So she wasn't so involved with everything else, but she got the same treatment. So I'm thinking, like, it's kind of like you two, zap, still out, new in.
I can't remember the exact scenario in which Leanne was swept up in that deposing.
Just like you are the hand of the Amrylin.
Was she there?
You act as one. I suppose it's the balance of the tower, that the Amrylin has someone keeping the records and advising her. It's like the action and the counter equation between the two. So if the Amrylin therefore fucks up, everyone says, well, where were you, keeper? Why didn't you fix this? You have a responsibility to account for the Amrylin's action. And it's like, it just really got me thinking, because I was listening to that whole, when we spoke about it, like her taking over and giving Elida comeuppance, and the way that it was written almost sounded to me like she saw a gap to do something and then went with it. Like, it wasn't, I don't feel like it was planned. It was like, okay, this is the time now. I've got to do something because this is going to blow up. Anyway, those are my two callbacks. I never make it short and easy. But
That's why we're all here, is to overly complicate the whole story for ourselves. Okay. Joe, did you bring anything?
No.
Case closed. Okay, thanks, Vil. Please do continue to bring shit to callbacks. Now, in my old callbacks from 2 episodes ago, I did call Samantha, who had strong opinions about Egwene and Elaine, Amanda by mistake. Apologies, Samantha. The lady that died in the street when Rand was attacked by Paden Fane's White Cloaks, 7 people died in that street when Rand was attacked. And only 3 of them were Aiel. At least one of them was a maiden, the one that sort of like took that arrow for him and smiled as she died. The commoner woman that was lying in the street was in her middle years with a square face and a touch of grey in her hair, and Rand tells Nandira to take care of her family and to find out her name. So if he doesn't know her name, I guess they never did. Because that's the context in which we brought this up, right?
Yes. As I remember, there was a specific reference to a specific woman and not just, 7 people died. Great. I didn't know that exact number, but I knew that our attention was drawn to this one specific woman.
Yes.
Who we will never know who she is.
Joe, this one's for you as well. When Rand goes to the Sea Folk and meets 2 of the women with the same name, you thought that they might be mother and daughter. But Hareen Din Togara 2 Winds is Wave Mistress of the Seafolk clan Shodin. Her sister, Shalon Din Togara Morningtide, is her Windfinder. So they're sisters.
Alrighty.
And still with the Seafolk, you thought that they referred to the Arath Ocean as maybe the Cursed Seas, but specifically the Islands of the Dead, which is the sea folk name for the Shanshan continent. So when they talk about people never returning from the isles or the islands of the dead, it's specifically, they know the Shanshan continents are there and they don't go there because their ships never return. Then we asked, what the fuck is a longboat? It's a type of
place
boat.
You put the sailor until he's sober. Isn't that the song?
It's a boat that is
Put him
long.
in the longboat until he's sober.
Yes.
Okay. A longboat is what they used to row people to the boats. Because then...
People and supplies. So they were used for transporting heavy weights. The two most important of these were casks of drinking water and an anchor and its cable. So the longboat usually had the largest passenger carrying capacity out of a ship's boats. Longboats were used by both warships and merchant ships, and they were fitted so that it could be propelled either by oars or by sail. So there you go. If you have a whole bunch of people you have to take over to a sea folk ship, a longboat's the way you're going to do it.
Beauty.
Gotcha.
Then a quick correction. We were talking about David Hanlon and like how he becomes, captain of the Queen's Guard or whatever it is. And we thought that maybe that was Talonvor's old position. Talonvor was not the leader of the Queen's Guard. He was just a lieutenant. David Hanlon does hold this rank at one point, but is promoted to captain eventually. It's when he saves Elaine's life from people that he sent to kill her. Like he stages saving her life.
What a scumbag.
He's a dark friend. He's an absolute scumbag. Murderous dark friend. The only rank above that is the Captain General. And that was the one held by Gareth Bryan and later by Birgitte. She becomes the Captain General of Andor. And in the time of war, the first Prince of the Sword actually commands the guard and the armies. So in the time of war, Gawain would take over from, if it was Gareth Bryan at the time, which it is no longer, but he would take over from Birgitte.
Listen, if I had to choose between Gawain and Birgitte, sorry. Sorry, Gawain.
Then we asked, how does David Hanlon just waltz back into the palace in Camelin? So under Margideon's orders, Hanlon reports to Millie Skane. She shows him the price of failure by killing Jacob Carradine and torturing Falion Boda. She tells him to become one of Elaine Trakan's men, and then Hanlon begins working as a guard for Elaine under the alias Doylan Mellar. When she is attacked by 3 men, he fends them off, leading to a promotion to captain of the Queen's bodyguard. And then later, when Elaine falls pregnant, there are rumors swirling around that it's him, and she doesn't quell those rumors because they don't want people to know that the Dragon Reborn's kids are in her belly. So that's the whole other thing.
I remember something, guys.
Now. After being prompted.
But I still remember it. It was in there.
Yes, it is
hiding.
there. It's locked away
Some
behind.
stuff is just not there, like, at all. Even if you remind me. You'll be like, it's news to me.
Then I made a quick mention of the, the dagger Terangriel that makes you invisible to Shadowspawn that Gerald asked about. Like, if you're holding it, can you see yourself in the mirror if you're a dark friend?
Yes.
It's called the Artham. The Artham is a Terangriel in the form of a dull dagger that hides its bearer from Shadowspawn and the Shadow in general. It was created after Lews Theron's death and was eventually recovered from the Kin's storeroom in Ibudar. Avienda discovered her talent for reading Terangriel by examining the dull dagger. So Avienda realizes that she can understand what a Terangriel does by looking at specifically this dagger. Willie, you mentioned that Torum Ryanton fought Rand basically in his underwear, in his sumo brooks, you called them. He was still in his shirt and breeches. He wasn't quite in his undies. Rand tells Cadsuane that Lews Theron is real immediately after she slaps him for using the white hot light of justice. So Rand uses balefire, and then Cadsuane comes over and slaps him. And he's not, like I sort of implied, that he was eager to tell her. He sort of very coldly and calmly tells her, Lews Theron sort of taught me this. He is real. Still keen to obviously let her understand that he is not mad, but we know better. Now, the biggest topic of discussion in our last episode, Rand's wound. So, let me recount the descriptions of Rand's wound that we know of, at least in recent books. I went back to look for the size of the scar, the round scar from Ishamael's staff. I couldn't find it after looking for a couple of minutes. I stopped looking. So I just focused on the descriptions we get in this book. So Sumitsu's description in the field goes like this. The cut from Fane's dagger, no longer than her hand and not deep, ran right across the old scar. So I had made a mistake. I thought it was Min that compared it to her hand, but it's actually Samitsu who's looking at the wound and comparing it to the length of her hand. Min could see the edges of the gash looked swollen and angry. And then later, this, Samitsu said in a lecturing tone, lightly touching the old scar, seems like a cyst, but full of evil instead of pus. And this, she drew the finger down the gash, seems full of a different evil. And then when Flynn rocks up, he stripped the sheet down to Rand's waist, exposing the wound. The gash looked neither better nor worse than she remembered. A gaping, angry, bloodless wound slicing across the round scar. Flynn traced his finger along the puffy gash in Rand's side and across the old scar. So you might be wondering why I'm going in so hard on this wound, but it's because it's referenced so often. I want to make sure I have the right picture in my head. So it's a gash, like it's a long wound, almost as long as Samitsu's hand, that goes right across this puckered old scar. And I think, Vil, where you thought it was like a dome with just a nick over the top, is maybe that description, the figurative description of it being like a cyst holding this evil, but it's not actually physically, literally shaped like a cyst. I couldn't find out exactly when Nyande figures out that Tom killed Galdrian, but she was pissed off about it because it caused a civil war. Remember, she's the other Aes Sedai that's with Cadsuane and Samitsu, who was King Galdrian's advisor when he was killed by Tom. And then Flynn's 15 wounds that he talks about, they're not all from lances. He just counted 15 serious wounds, which, according to him, any wound that left you unable to walk or ride was serious. So 15 times he got so injured that he couldn't walk and he couldn't even ride a horse. And also he could not have healed himself because you can't heal yourself. That's actually stated explicitly. That's all my callbacks for both episodes. Oh. But now we have some listener contributions.
Righto.
Quite a few. Get comfy. So, Ian Yellen writes in. He says, ideal societies probably pick their members like a US college fraternity or sorority. I don't know what that means, but that's Ian's opinion.
I've watched lots of American movies. I kind of get it. It's a hazing ritual.
No, but hazing is after you picked.
You apply.
You in now you get hazed. Yeah, you don't get
Ian, can you
hazed
let us know?
to get in. I'll ask you.
Ian, let us know. How does that happen?
In America, you should know.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Ian also says Elida's Black Arger hunt also roots out a bunch of the rebels' ferrets, and we learn about the re-oaths of the Black Arger. Paden Fane is no longer a dark friend. He's a free agent of evil. I think we've covered that one to death. And then Ian was thinking, doesn't Torum duel Rand because he thinks that Rand is a rival for Caroline's hand? But I went back and I read it, and it's when Torum spots Rand's sword, he challenges him and calls him cousin, because according to him, they will be cousins after he marries Caroline. This immediately after she told him to stop talking like that. So I don't think he's jealous. Like they're presented as cousins. I don't think he thinks that Rand is actually after Caroline. So it's not like a competition for her hand or anything. But he certainly is a show.
He's just a dick.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Just a garden variety dickhead.
That's the one. Adam McKinnon writes in to say, I'm quickly catching up. I just finished episode 55 and something caught my attention. You guys mentioned a stool attacking Nynaeve, then it became wobbly after. I was wondering if it's the same stool that Egwene complains about later when she's Amelin seat. It's a fun thought. Remember when the bubble of evil attacks?
Yes.
Nynaeve, the stool is sort of like half busted after Nynaeve was sitting on it. And then later in the story, Egwene is just sitting in her study and the stool she's sitting on is also like constantly like buckling under her and stuff. So Adam thinks, oh, it could be the same stool. We will never know.
It is now.
Yes,
no,
it
we
is
do
now.
know.
That would be good though. I mean, it's like that is the most meta like detail remembering in the book ever.
Yes,
like,
I love it.
Make it a rickety stool.
We have now christened this
As
canon.
As canon.
It is now the truth there. Okay, done.
Right, then Gerald, with a head cold induced backlog of shower thoughts, sends in the following. Matt's Foxhead medallion. Does it stop balefire?
Nothing stops balefire.
Not even a Foxhead medallion.
So weave.
I don't believe it.
It undoes the medallion. It can't stop it. It's like it trying to stop balefire, but then the balefire undoes what it does as it hits it. So
but the balefire can't touch it.
And then
balefire can't touch it, so it can't undo it.
Unless the balefire is so strong that it takes the medallion back to before it was made.
But it can only do that if it can touch the medallion.
But it's only women that can't channel at him. Men can channel at Matt,
No.
can't they?
We don't know that.
We don't know that. So balefire can be made by men as well. So it's the same thing. Balefire men, balefire woman. What's the difference? Maybe there's balefire is like its own little thing.
The true
power.
power. The true power. Now that's the rogue element,
So
right? That could happen.
If you balefired him with, obviously anything with the true power, it wouldn't stop it.
Yeah.
I think the medallion is exempt from balefire. It will not stop it. Like balefire is like the railgun of the world. It's like no stopping.
Based on zero evidence.
Yeah, I know.
Stated as empirical fact.
This is my opinion, therefore it is fact.
I don't think so. I don't think, barring the true power, I think a one power balefire, I don't think touches the medallion. I don't think it can.
Put it out to our ETH out there. Hey guys, tell us. Balefire.
We just have.
Oh, damn.
So, the duel between Rand and Torum was an awesome spectacle of Rand's ability, and it was interesting that the comment from Jody, I think, about how Torum wasn't in the flame and the void due to his cold fury. I think we spoke about that last time, which made Gerald think of the difference between the Jedi and the Sith. The Jedi all meditation and calm, and the Sith all hate and anger, which is a cool parallel. It does remind of that.
There's actually, I have a reference to that in my notes. It's a Star Wars reference.
Okay, then Gerald says, the slog. Going back through the story now, and for some of these books it will be my fourth or fifth read, I'm thinking that the slog may not exist because there are so many nuggets of gold in the non-action chapters that have come out in these discussions that you guys have had. To be fair, we as a podcast haven't hit the slog yet, but we're about to. It's my editorializing. So then Gerald continues, as a first-time reader, you just don't realize that some of the information being supplied is foretelling things in the future or just giving the reader information that is actually useful. All I wanted to do was skip read over loads of those chapters and get to the interesting bits. I think I remember flicking through chapters in the early reads, trying to get past the boring looking for the bowl of the winds rubbish, or trying to skip over chapters of 9 Even Elaine so I can get back to Rand chapters. This is a sentiment we have echoed, right? But this time around, there are so many tidbits of intrigue to pick up on. So my response to that is like, let's hope that continues into books 8, 9, and 10, which is what I consider to be the slog. 8, 9, and 10 to me are the slog, and I think that's generally held.
I don't think we're going to hit a slog at all. We're going to dive in so deep into the back end politics that we're going to open this up as a new read in a very big way. Because for me, it's like now I know nothing. I cannot from this point remember anything that happens now. Like all the big events is now
it's
out.
Blurry.
Like now all your big events because I mean, when we read it at first, we also spoke at length about the big events. Hours and hours before a podcast even existed. We spoke about those big events, but we didn't get the time to speak
Working
about
in a
that.
surf shop, whiling away the hours instead of serving customers.
9 hours a day,
Wheel of Time.
standing and supposed to be hanging up clothes, just talking Wheel of Time and watching surf movies. But it's we didn't get a chance to speak about from book 7 and like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. The big events like that. So that, I think, to a degree, it hasn't solidified those things into our heads because we didn't hammer away at it for so long in discussion.
I agree. I also think this is not going to be as sluggy as I remember.
No, look, it's impossible. If our job is to literally read and decipher and deep dive every single sentence.
Plumb the depths for the gold. Yeah.
Indeed.
Gerald also says the wise ones using the power in battle. This one goes back to the discussion around Dumas Wells and if the wise ones would know how to use the power in battle because they don't participate in battles when it's clan versus clan. But I would expect they would still battle against Shadowspawn and therefore knowing how to create a fireball is a good idea. And I think we may even have said as much.
And that happened in book 4, now to mention it, when they get attacked at Cold Rock's Hold.
That's the example I
wise
used.
Ones do participate.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I remember that because you said it recently. Gotcha.
Yes. I incepted that memory. Then another one about Matt's Foxhead medallion. This time it's about how it deflects the power. We know that any flows directed at him dissipate, but a rock thrown at him by using the power would be okay. As would, I assume, creating a sphere around him and sucking all the air out of it. The great discussion about creating a wall of air, is it a wall of air or a wall of flows of air, and if he would be stopped by it. I have another point of view. If you create a sword from the power, would you be able to stab him with it? Like Rand's sword that he makes or used to make from the power? I assume it is made from flows of the power, so it would dissipate. What if you pulled out some ore from the ground to surround the tip of the sword and then poked him with that? So the power isn't touching Matt directly. Gerald. Way too much time on his hands.
We don't need this kind of shit in our lives.
Hey, this is why I'm here. It's like,
I'm
there's a
Gerald.
mechanic, and I love it. I love that
Yes.
to make this so much of a bit. Like, the problem with a lot of fantasy is that it is so out there that you cannot, there's no mechanic to what is happening on the screen sometimes or on the page. That's why I love this detail. I love this mechanic detail. And I love that you can sit and go through this like this doesn't make sense. There has to be something. And again, I think we come up with a lot of conclusions ourselves just to satisfy our own curiosity. I mean, after all, this is all fiction, so it doesn't really matter.
It's literally magic.
Magic.
But I agree with Gerald. I think the flame sword I don't think would work, but I think if you had to push something through Matt using the flame sword, that would have to work.
But wouldn't the flame sword dissipate as soon as it got close, and then the little iron ore would just fall down to the ground?
Maybe.
Do the flows actually have to touch the medallion, or do they come? Because I mean, when they're using weaves on him, they're not aiming at the medallion; they're aiming at him in general. So I think it's like on his body anywhere.
Yes, it is anywhere on his body.
Like
yeah.
The medallion has
touch his body, or was it within like a foot?
Well, the wording is flows directed at him.
All right, so it doesn't even have to touch him.
They need to do more
Just has to
experiments.
No.
Yes, sorry, Matt.
To poke him with more things.
Guinea pig, Matt.
Yes.
I'm with Elaine on this.
I'll touch on this when we break down my episode, when the Shawnshank attack, or not my episode, my chapter. I want to break this down as well, because he is channeled at by Shawnshank witch, and the medallion goes cold. He isn't hurt, but everything around him, obviously, he had broken and fallen, and he's covered by the debris of a falling wall. So even in event that things is thrown at him, I'd probably just think about like air going around him and joining up. The weaves go like just split around him and go off him. So nothing ever really touches anything. Like we know that in the world of physics, nothing can touch anything.
It's quantum mechanics, man.
Propel each other. So there has to be a atomic force on the nucleus or something at that point for it to say, okay, you're this close. Okay, then the atoms actually react to the other atoms and say, not today, you will pass around me. I am not empty space. And then the physics of it work. So there we go.
Oh, there we go.
It's not magic. It's physics.
Yes. Magic physics.
Magic physics. Isn't all physics magic?
Yes, it is. All of it. None of it. I can believe anything. Because I think they can write something at mathematics. Now it's real. Come on, man. You read some fantasy.
Insert that clip of Philip J. Fry going, magic, got it.
Yes, exactly.
Then Gerald also says, I was thinking about the oath rod that the Aes Sedai bind themselves on, and if they really wanted to make sure there was no Black Archer, then surely you could just have everyone re-swear on it every year or something. I mean, how difficult would that be?
But that would be admitting there is a Black Archer, which they don't want to do.
That's exactly my point. They are in complete denial. So like another core shaking admission that holier-than-thou attitude is fragile and that they are not, in fact, better than everyone else. They are also susceptible to falling prey to the machinations of the dark, of the shadow. And then the return of the prodigal son, or in this case, the prodigal delivery man. It's Richard Jackson with a couple contributions. He says, I've always pictured Randland practice swords as bamboo shinai used in kendo and other martial arts. And yes, they hurt. Same here. And then Richard says, I don't think Catswain is referring to the strength in the power when she's talking about Amis, nor does Catswain ever really put down wilders just for being wilders. The worst she says is that she wishes that they were tower trained. Both can be attributed to her being humbled by a toothless wilder shortly after her attaining the shawl, which is also where she acquired the paralysis net, which she wears in her hair, which we've mentioned before as well. So the wording from the story is, I would like to meet this Sorelia. She is a strong woman. She seemed to emphasize the word strong. I do still think that she meant strong in the power, but I agree that she is not nearly as flippant about the wise ones as the other Aes Sedai. Yeah. And being humbled by that wilder certainly left an impression on her. In many ways, her experience with that wilder shaped her. She learned a lot from her, and over some time, it seems like. So from the fandom wiki on Cadswain, it says, fairly soon after she had attained the shawl, she suffered a humiliating lesson from a toothless wilder named Norla, who lived in the Black Hills. Norla's tutelage helped shape Cadswain's composure and skills beyond tower training, which to me seems like it implies that she spent some time there learning from her. Then Richard said, Rand's wound. I'd always thought that the wound Rand received from Ishamel was about an inch in diameter, but also inflamed, so about 3 to 4 inches total in diameter. I'm fairly sure there is an actual reference somewhere in the text to the literal diameter of the wound, and I cannot remember it, but yes, Richard, I agree. I'd thought maybe 2-3 inches, that area. I remember when we read the section that I'm talking about now, I was shocked at how much smaller it is than I had always pictured it. Because, I mean, it never describes the thickness of Ishamal's staff. A staff can be, like, thick enough for you to not get your hand around, because it was like a charred black staff that he was using. But, I mean, it can also be only an inch or even less.
But also, like, it's not a arrow wound. It's a magic wound. Like, it never heals because it's filled with evil. Like, what he stabbed him with is also dark and Shadar Logoth bladey or same sort of thing. So it might have, for all intents and purposes, been a very small penetration mark, but because of the evil, like, spread to be like this massive wound. Because for me, it never made sense that if you blunt force trauma someone with a 10 centimeter diameter thing, you dead, motherfucker. You ain't surviving that. You take your liver out the back of your back. You don't live without a liver.
Bludgeoning damage.
Yeah, that's
not piercing damage.
Cancelled. But if it's a smaller thing that stabs you, enters, doesn't go all the way through, and it's like a little spike wound, but it's got evil festering, then
it was
yes.
It was a puncture wound, and Lanfear treated it at the end of the Great Hunt. When she comes in there, when Min is lying in bed with Rand, Lanfear comes in and she does something, and she half heals it and sort of contains the evil as well. So the healing that Flynn does also has a physical effect on the gash that Peyton Fane inflicted on Rand. So like these healings do, while they can't heal them completely, certainly have an effect on the actual scar tissue and the actual physical manifestation of the wound. Then Richard says here, what I was referring to before, remember that Fane is not just a product of Shal Ghul and Mashadar, but also of Mash and Shin, which seems to have a primitive intelligence. See The Great Hunt, chapter 33. I believe the mist fog he uses is a combination of Mashadar and Mash and Shin. Agreed. Then he also says, I think Flynn talking while he heals is similar to what Nynaeve did while healing Logain, Swan, and Leanne. She's actually thinking of other things, and the distraction allows both to work more from instinct. And I'd forgotten that. It's true. Nynaeve does sort of like, her mind is wandering. When she heals Logain the very, very first time, her mind is somewhere else. And it's written very explicitly in that way, that she's not paying attention to what she's doing. It almost does it just by feel. And then the last one from Richard is Calandor. We don't know who made it, only that it was made sometime during or shortly after the War of Power. I also don't believe that every Aes Sedai who went over to the Shadow announced it the moment that it happened. So it's quite possible that one of the 29 chosen that had been granted access to the true power and not yet revealed their conversion had a hand in its creation. This works regardless of when it was made, as not all the Forsaken were sealed in the Boar, only the 13 most powerful. So yes, that's, I guess, enough wiggle room for an Aes Sedai that hasn't been outed as a dark friend yet to be involved in the making of Calandor and somehow infusing some kind of access to the true power in it.
That's a point that you made that I actually read about in prepping for these notes about when they went over to the shadow, they didn't announce it. No. Sammael, for example, they only found out that he was a Forsaken 4 years after he swore his oaths.
Wow. That's a long ass time.
Because he left the gates open to a city. He let a city die. And it's only when he did that they realized, oh shit. So he had been a spy for 4 years in the high command of the light.
Wow.
And it's the moment when they made Lews Therin the general of the forces of the light, and because he used to be it, that he went, no, fuck this noise. And he actually went with Graendal. She took him to Shale Ghul.
Yes.
And now they're working together in these books again. It's like, hey, the team's back together.
However reluctantly Graendal might be doing it. But yes, I mean...
So who knows what the other ones did.
Maybe Sammael.
How long they were hidden and...
Yeah, Graendal does all of that under duress, unfortunately.
Yes, she does.
She's not really the team player. She's more kind of
After
like
being manipulated by Sammael.
Yeah.
Straight up
lies. That's not an issue anymore.
No. Okay, well, that was a marathon callback section, so let's quickly sprint through previously on Blood and Ashes. Rand and Torm Righton duel with practice swords, and Rand is able to easily fend off Righton's attacks despite wearing his coat and gloves. But during the duel, the tent they are in is pulled into the sky and an unnatural fog descends on the encampment. Fog begins tearing people and animal to pieces, and even some Aes Sedai unable to escape the death and destruction. Rand, Min, Caroline, Darlin, Cadswain, Samitsu, and Nande are all in one spot and start fighting back together, even after Torm Righton is with them shouting for Gerald Mordeth, who disappeared soon after Rand and Min's arrival. After a couple of skirmishes during which Rand uses balefire and gets slapped by Cadswain for doing so, Righton runs off when he realizes who Rand is. Soon after, Fane comes leaping out of the fog and slashes Rand's side after a warning shot from Min lets him twist away from the brunt of the attack. Fane disappears, cackling into the fog, and Rand collapses immediately and starts looking like death from the Shadar Logoth wound. Samitsu immediately applies what healing she can, but she fears it won't be enough. The wound is beyond her considerable capability as a healer. The group form a defensive formation with Darlin carrying Rand on his shoulders, and they make their way up the slopes of the hill they are camped below in an attempt to get above the fog. They eventually do. The mist then starts creeping back, and Caroline looks at the destruction left in its wake and laments the destruction of her so-called army. Darlin tells her that she has an army waiting in Tyr if she needs it. They make their way to the road where they pull over a farmer on his cart, pay for his goods, and leave them by the side of the road as they pile in and set off for the Sun Palace. When they get there, Rand is rushed to his rooms where he is cared for. Soon after, Amis, Bera, Kiruna arrive after hearing about Rand's condition. Bera and Kiruna are soon sent off to Soralia. Amis and Cadswain have an interaction where neither backs off the other, but they treat each other with mutual respect. Deshiva arrives with Narishma and Dharma Flynn in tow. He orders Flynn to see what he can do about the wound, much to the consternation of the Aes Sedai. But Flynn starts his work and manages to stabilize Rand completely, much to Samitsu's surprise. She immediately starts interrogating Flynn about what he did, and everyone can rest a little easier. Meanwhile, Matt is on his way to meet the party, heading to the Rahad to retrieve the Bowl of the Winds. He's deeply embarrassed about his relationship with Tylan and how everyone seems to know about it. He arrives at the stables where the coaches are being prepared for departure. A couple of his men, Beslin, Nalessian, Elaine, and the kin are all present, but no Nynaeve. He interrupts Elaine's conversation with the kin to ask about Nynaeve, only to be interrupted by a servant bringing Matt a basket of food sent by the Queen. Nynaeve arrives with Lan on her arm, much to Matt's shock. When they're all on the coaches, Lan has joined the men. He tells Matt that he and Nynaeve are married and that Morgideon killed 2 of his men. She could still be lurking. When Beslin asks Matt if he's not going to read the note from his mom sent, Matt does and is mortified and pretends to take a nap while he hides under his hat. When they arrive at the river, ready to cross to the Rahad, Elaine gives Matt shit about his abhorrent behavior toward the Queen and threatens to renege on her promises of cooperation if he doesn't change his ways. Matt snaps and tells her it's him who is being hounded by her. Elaine stifles a laugh and Matt is again mortified. Even so, Matt offers her the medallion as protection from Morgideon, but she declines, saying that it would not feel right with no medallions for Nynaeve or Avienda. They make their way to the house they found in Tel Aranriad, but soon after heading in, they are attacked by Falion and Ispen and a gang of Dark Friends. While Elaine and some kinswomen head upstairs to find the bowl, the Black Archer sisters and thugs battle Matt, Nynaeve, Lan, and the Red Arms. They hear a scream from upstairs, and when Matt gets to the hallway at the top of the stairs, he finds Elaine and the others in piles on the floor, thugs carrying everything out of the room, and a golem. The golem tells Matt his master wants Matt dead as much as he wants Elaine captured, so they fight, and in the process, Nalessian comes upstairs and is killed by the golem. Matt is not making much progress against the shadow spawn until the medallion touches the golem and it recoils in pain. When it makes for Elaine, Matt stalks it, swinging the medallion, and the golem flees. First Nynaeve, then Sumiko come upstairs and start healing Elaine and some of the kinswomen. Elaine finds the bowl in the storeroom, and she thanks Matt from the bottom of her heart for saving her and the others. They decide it's a good idea to get the hell out of there. And that brings us to our first chapter today, chapter 39, called Promises to Keep. Bill, do you promise to keep us entertained with a summary?
Yes, I sure do. Okay. Now I'm gonna just quickly run through this chapter. I'm not gonna try and make this too long because we got a lot to talk about, and especially a bit later. Point of view, Matt. Matt is in the Tarasin Palace, and Matt wants to get moving. Matt doesn't like. We found the bowl, make a gateway, and get out of here. But there's other plans. Matt doesn't get to do what he wants to do. Matt is very happy that he's in a room with his medallion now because there's just woman who can channel from various party. We're talking Aes Sedai we got there, we got the Wilder's kin, and now we've got the wave mistresses and their windfinders that can channel. That's in the mix there. And the discussion then now gets up to this golem, like a fierce discussion and disagreement about a golem and what it is. And Miralel says, like, I don't believe it because if Catswain doesn't know about it, it's not real. Matt, again, Elaine standing there, but Daughter Air is very quiet, lost her tongue. She's not saying much, but that's her plan. She's like, no. All we're going to do is stand at the back and let Matt loose. And Matt's hating this because now he's starting to pick up on this because he's looking at Nynaeve, who's not grabbing braids, and Elaine, who's kind of like twiddling thumbs. Look, he's like, oh, he hates being used. But anyway, Matt enlightens all the Aes Sedai over Gholam and tells them, and he read it in a book. Now, the sea folks are none too pleased, and the lady, her name is Renaal Den Kalon Bluestar. So I'm going to call her Bluey. Bluey is not stoked that Matt is advising that they run away from the water. Everyone has to leave. Let's get away from the city. There's a golem. It's still alive, still loose. Let's go where no one, the Black Arja or the golem, knows we are, so that we can get away from it. That's a sound plan. I have no problem with that plan. However, no one wants to agree with Matt, and this is where Matt now gets a little bit petulant, a little bit pushy.
Petulant.
Yeah.
Petulant's like sulky.
Yeah, no, not sulky. Then it's not petulant. Obnoxious is more what I'm going for.
No, he's annoyed.
Yeah, he's annoyed.
Yeah.
He's pushing, like we have to move. But now Renila challenges him, as I said, on this information. He brought up the book situation. They didn't dig that. Now Matt, as I said, he doesn't understand this why of him being the only man in the room, the only guy that's got to be there. And as I said, Nynaeve and Elaine are twiddling thumbs at the back. And at this point, he decides, all right, he's just going to walk up and he's going to just whatever flows. So Matt walks up to Renila and says, you guys can channel, right? And they're like, yes. It's like, now this is the first thing. Ask those Aes Sedai behind me ask them how much I care about that. And everyone at the back's quiet. And she's like, well, who am I speaking to here? I'm not, why am I making a bargain with this oakum picker? Nynaeve, she says, now, do you know what an oakum picker is? It was punishment in the 1800s for people to pick oakum, which from what I understand, is picking apart hemp. Like it's a torturous job because at the end of the day, your hands bleed, and oakum is used with tar to knock into the woods, paneling between the woods to seal a boat.
Right.
So there's a lot of boat reference here. So she calls him an oakum picker, which in England in the 1800s was also used as punishment, like a type of corporal punishment. You're going to work as your penance. You're going to every day pick so many ounces of oakum. And you bled every day. People apparently had welts, massive black welts on their fingers from doing this job. Now we've got machines doing this shit. Now, Matt then, after that insult, being called a prisoner, low body, rips loose, and he calls her the daughter of the sands. And you're going to listen to me now. I don't care about your other bargain. This is the bargain. You will do what I tell you to do, and or you will go with Nynaeve and Elaine, or I will put you and your crew on a horse and pack you up there. Like, and he then literally like seals the deal, kisses his finger, slaps it on her lip. But before she's so angry at this point, when he called her the daughter of the sands, that she pulled her blade. She's like, right, that's it. Dagger out. She goes for Matt. Matt, quick hands. Chow, karate. Disarms her, shoves her in the chest, straight back into her seat, and lets down this law. And then after this lips to the mouth kiss, she does the same. She's like, oh shit, I just made a bargain with a Taviran. It's like, okay, guess we are going off the water and into the land.
He says, in the time of war, even the mistress of the ships listens to the master of the blades. And I am the master of the blades.
And the blades are bare. That's the last
thing.
And
the blades are bare.
The blades are bare. So it's time of war. So you're not in control. So I love that. Great. But now they don't know where they're going. So various ideas gets put forward. We go to this palace, and no, we go to Camelin, Elaine, no. Avienda's like, hey, let's go to Ruidian. The poor windfinders like start so far from the ocean in the middle of the desert. No, that's not.
But it's got water now. It's fine. There's a lake next to it.
There's a lake in Alice, but it's not the salt lake. It's a freshwater lake. But no, that's not going to work until one of the kin says, "Hey, we've got a spot that no one knows about. You know, place where women go for contemplation. That's all that people know, and a lot of people know about it. So we got a spot." And there's comfortable rooms. It's like it's set up perfect for this situation. And they all agree. And Matt doesn't pack up the ladies onto a horse. And they are going to go off. But they're going to go say their goodbyes, get their things. Tom is there getting all his things. He teases Matt. He said, like, oh, you left your ring behind. It must be a gift from Thailand. Rags Matt a bit about that. He's like, no, I bought that with my own money. You know, this is the ring that he couldn't get off his finger back in the day when he was just trying on things. It became his signet. Then he does his little goodbyes with Thailand. She tells him that she'll really miss him, and he's really handled himself so well and what. And he's like, yeah, I'll miss you too. Quite nice. And next time I do the chasing. So they do their little goodbyes. And the last thing to do is let's get Olver and get out of here. But Olver's not in the apartments where he's... What was her name now? Rizal. The ample-bosomed Rizal is alone in the room, and there's no, and she's like, well, why should I have kept him here? Like, he's done his words, he's done his sums, like, he's done school, he's allowed to go out to town. So he's a little urchin out in town now. He likes to give away his coats when he goes and cuts loose. He is a little mat. He's matting around town.
So clear, yeah.
So now he needs to be found. And firstly, Avienda's telling Matt that he doesn't look right after the kid, and he doesn't do anything right. But okay, just before this, quickly, is it Nerim's? No, what was his name now? The servant man, Lopin. We've got Lopaz, we've got Lopin. Lopin and Nerim. Lopin asks if he can stay behind when they decide to move, because he would like to see Nalisian pour one out for our homie. Properly buried. He was a good master. Like, he's doing what's right, and he's like, okay, cool, that's fine, but we got to move. And I'd love for you to be in my service, to look after Olver. And this prompted, hey, where is Olver? So I just glossed over that real quick. But anyway, everyone's out looking for Olver now. And Matt wishes he was on Pips, because he would be able to scan higher through the Malhara, but then it's difficult to speak to people, and he's gone around and he's asking left and right, and eventually gets to a man that tries to sell him apples, and the apples are so soft and old it looks like it's falling into his fingers. But anyway, and there's thunder and there's like crashes and all the rest. Eventually, Matt gets to the front of the docks on the riverside where there's all the various docks. And guess what's on the other side across the bay? Square-ribbed sails.
Dun, dun, dun.
There's or Kakanara. Like, okay, the Sean Shan's here. Half the people think it's Aes Sedai attacking. The other half thinks the White Cloaks are coming. The other is Jesus attacking. Everything's happening at once. But Matt knows there's only
It's the second coming.
there's only one thing
It's the rapture.
that he needs to do. And he's like, I should not have worn green because I look like the gods, and I need to get away. And with that, he sees there's Torokan flying. There's people channeling off these Torokan and Rock, like throwing fireballs and lightning. It's like, oh fuck, get out of here. This is no good. This is no good. And then his metal goes cold against his chest, and a falling of litter and rocks and crap. And Matt is trapped. The end of that chapter.
It's the wall of an inn.
Buried alive.
The whole wall of an inn topples in on him in the alley that he's running down.
And he thinks, where's my bloody luck?
Exactly.
Where's my luck?
He has enough time to think.
But he's alive. Yeah, Matt, you're alive. Your luck is good.
Yes. Yeah. And that is the last we see of Matt until, I think, book 9. Or like, there's no Matt in book 8.
Yeah, because he died.
Yeah. The
That's
end.
it. He's not coming back ever again.
Do you have anything to add in there, Joe?
Not really. No.
Pipe down, Jody.
I mean, he's basically covered it all. They go out, and then the Sean Chan attack, and all shit. Cut the hell, and then Jesus comes back, and it's the end.
Okay, I'll rattle off a couple. Yeah, I won't keep us here too long. But the dice in Matt's head are rolling louder and louder, and it's making him anxious, and he's like pulling at his scarf and stuff. You can tell like there's this claustrophobic feeling that Matt knows something's about to go down. Matt notices that Elaine and Nynaeve seem to have bathed, and he is shocked, since they've come back to the city from the Rahad. But they've been there for 3 hours, Matt, and they can channel. So, like getting hot water is not an issue.
But Matt says in that they weren't out of his sight for more than a minute. So my question there is, if these girls just moved on to just use the power to clean themselves 3 times a day, look,
they could.
Well, that they clearly do. Nynaeve did it in front before Elaine came, and then she did it again before she got there. Elaine did it. Everyone's just looking fresh. I mean, it's
I also don't think that they weren't out of Matt's sight for a minute. I can't remember Matt saying that, but certainly if he's thinking that, that's like a Mattism, right? Like that's not factually correct.
Yeah, I think the error lies with Matt.
Yes. He thinks he's got an eye on all of them all the time, which he does not. Interesting, Merilil has never heard of a golem. It's something older than what the Aes Sedai even know about, and it's only because of what Birgitte told Matt that he knows. Matt's memories only stretch back to the Trolloc Wars. So Matt doesn't remember anything from the War of Power or anything that far back. So it actually is only Birgitte that knows, and she gives him all the information.
She's the only person that knows what that was.
Yeah. Yeah. Sumiko, do you remember the kinswoman that is good at healing? This sort of second in charge, the one that actually becomes the leader of the kin when Rhiann Corley is killed. She's not so cowed by the Aes Sedai anymore. She's described as sort of like she's a little bit disillusioned with this Aes Sedai thing. And I think the combination of the longevity thing, plus the fact that she seems to know more about healing than most Aes Sedai, is maybe breaking the spell for her a bit. So I'm going to keep watching Sumiko. She's always been the one that she's broken the rules of the kin, right? She's not supposed to study healing or anything but she has anyway. Now she's finding out the Aes Sedai are not all they're cracked up to be. Okay, maybe I'm not going to be so subservient and defer to them all the time. Matt actually thinks that on the boat on the way back from the Rahad, that this sort of attitude from Sumiko is what Nynaeve was talking to her about, because she had her sort of like speaking to her in hushed tones in the back of the cabin. But I think Nynaeve is quizzing her about healing. When she saw Sumiko healing in that hallway, she was like, whoa, where did you learn how to do that? And then they, Nynaeve's insatiable hunger for learning about healing would have trumped any kind of, Bowl of the Winds chat, or like what Sumiko's attitude to the Aes Sedai would be. I really enjoyed Matt recognizing exactly the position, the rank, the clan, etc. from the Sea Folk jewelry and the tattoos and stuff. Like he's looking at the medallions and from his old memories, he knows exactly what all of that means. And he also notices that the Sea Folk are looking at the Aes Sedai smugly. So I'm assuming that the the sea folk think that they got the better of the bargain that they had made, which comes back a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
Matt knows that at least 2 of the sea folk did not belong in this group. So when he looks at the sea folk women, he's like, 2 of them are dressed super plainly and don't actually fit in with the rest of them. And I'm assuming these 2 can also potentially channel, and that maybe the Aes Sedai, like Nynaeve and Elaine, or maybe even Merilil and those guys noticed this. And they're bringing these sea folk closer now, because part of the bargain that we haven't read about yet is that some of these windfinders will also go to the tower for training. Like they are now going to start training each other and learning from each other. So I think they're pulling not yet raised windfinders into the mix as well. Like any sea folk woman they come across they can channel is coming along now.
But he recognizes them as like trainees.
Yes.
By the way that they're dressed.
But I think the fact that they are here and not still on the boat is because they're coming with Elaine and Nynaeve to be trained by Aes Sedai.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is part of the bargain.
Yeah, I got the same thing. Like they don't want to go into the land, but the bargain has been struck. So this is the before bargain with Nynaeve and them. There's not the Rand visit that he had with the sea folk, and that who did he leave one of the Aes Sedai to carry on with the bargain that they had there. There's bargains being struck everywhere now with the sea folk, it seems.
Yeah. Matt says to all the women, I can't protect all of you at once. Okay, Matt, take it easy. You don't have to protect everybody. Just stop taking on responsibility.
Or anyone. Yes. Says the man that ends up under a wall.
Yes.
Yeah. Everyone else gets out fine.
When Riel, Bluey, when she agrees to the bargain that Matt makes with her, she agrees, but her eyes are bulging, so you can tell she's subject to Matt's Ta'veren nature here, which is exactly what Elaine and Nynaeve are playing at. They're like, Matt this Ta'veren thing can really work for us. Let's just push him out in front and let him do all the talking. And it's cool to see Matt's Ta'veren nature have this effect on people's attitudes and stuff, because we just saw it with Rand in the bargain with Hareen. And we saw it with Perrin when he was corralling all the farmers outside of the 2 rivers when the Trollocs were attacking, and he was going around amassing support, and everyone sort of just put him in front as well and let him convince everyone, and they just went along with it. It's cool. Matt now gets his time to shine as a Ta'veren as well, influencing people.
I think that his Ta'veren obviously influenced the situation, but a lot of it was his knowledge of the sea folk that he had. Like calling her a daughter of the sands and a bilestone, and there's so many words, because she throws the first insult calling him an oakum picker. When she does that, he goes daughter of the sands, bilestone, like, and then eventually she calls him a bile boy. Like they throw bilge boy. This bilge bile. That's always bile, bug, bulge. The bottom of a ship.
There's a G in it. Yeah, it's like isn't the bilge open for corrections here and callbacks? But isn't the bilge is like the bilge pump is like pumping everything out of the bottom.
Everything.
Of the boat,
so you've got the where the water meets the boat down is the bilge.
Yes.
And bilge water is what fills this thing. A bulge. I call it bulge. I don't know. I pronounce the word wrong all the time. There you have a bulge pump in there that will pump it out, which is a standard thing in both. But what is a bilge stone? A bilge stone? Is it just the balancing weight? Like
maybe like a ballast
weight in there. I can just think that it's a name for a pretty pointless thing, like, because it's used as an
down
insult.
To the bottom of the boat, right? Like,
you're like down there. You're like the shit in the water.
The captain isn't down there. The shitty job is down there.
You're a bilge boy. You're the one picking the stuff. You're picking the freaking bucket out the bilge with a bucket, emptying it,
carrying the bucket up the ladder, tossing it over the side, down again. After that whole thing, Nynaeve says to Matt, "What made you think of bullying them? You could have ruined everything." Are you kidding me, Nynaeve? And then Matt fires back with, maybe if he'd made the deal with them, it wouldn't have been as bad as what they got. And he hits the mark, because Nynaeve immediately goes like red and sort of like looks away, and he thinks to himself, not bad shooting blindfolded. Like he took a guess and he was right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Then another parallel between Olver and Matt. I think it's Rizal or someone says Olver sets a great store by his promises, like exactly like Matt. I've noticed here Nynaeve's still fighting her urge to pull her braid. I read later, I think it's in the beginning of book 8 where I read that it's specifically around Lan, where she's trying to not let her anger fly. Another great memory-enabled interaction with Birgitte, giving the Barashandan Lord response, when she says truth's honor or something like that, he gives her the true Barashandan Lord response. And it's just the two of them that know that. And the other, there's puzzled looks on Elaine and Nynaeve, and that's such a bonus. And I just love that Birgitte has kept his secret, and Matt goes from that interaction, he goes,
and he keeps
okay,
hers.
It looks like she hasn't shared it.
It's
yes,
the
exactly.
same. They keep
so I
each
just
other's
love their
secret.
little...
Yeah, for me,
bond.
with that little interplay there, Matt's obviously going to, and he's like, no, I said I can come with us because there's still a golem loose. Like, you guys get ready, get the fuck out of here. We're going to go look for Olver, and we'll get the directions to where we're going afterwards. So he sets up his whole plan there. But he tells Lan and Birgitte as warders, look after them.
Yes.
And then if Avienda just
Avienda
pipes up, puts out a knife, like, yeah, don't worry. Oh, I got this, mate.
Don't worry, I will.
Like this, and that's where that Barashandan Lord oath almost comes out. And that is so cool for me, but Avienda is like, hey, I can be anything. I can be Asata, I can be a warrior, I can be anything.
It's actually nice to see Avienda sometimes just being a bit clueless, Avienda, pipe down. This is a Matt and Birgitte thing.
But still, I've no doubt that Avienda would hold her own between those two.
She can kick ass and channel. She's the most powerful person in the room there, considering those two facts, right? Nynaeve and Elaine, they can channel a lot, but
they can't kick
no
ass.
Physical prowess. Nynaeve refers again to the storm breaking soon, so that's the Sean-Chan, I think. This is the storm that's coming. In fact, I've read on a bit. I've started book 8.
We've been talking about for so long.
Yes.
Oh, it's the Sean-Chan.
It is this.
So was the dice as well in Matt's head the Sean-Chan?
No. Yes, when the wall falls on him, the dice stop.
Okay. I thought maybe I thought that's what happened. I don't remember that.
I don't think the wall.
But I thought maybe he just went unconscious.
No, the wall
and therefore did not
falling on
hear
him
the dice.
is like, okay, cool. The luck things happen. I think spoke about
he's trapped here now.
Greater events that can happen so far away. And we always mentioned that how condensed this book is. Where's Rand right at that moment, and what's he doing? Did he just kill Sammael right then?
I think the dice have a specific, it might not be linked to events happening around Matt, but I think the outcomes have to affect Matt. I think, now I'm cheating a bit, quote unquote cheating, because I've read the first 2 chapters of Bath of Daggers, and even the arrival of the ships is described as the sort of heralds of a storm. The storm analogy is used specifically with the Sean-Chan a number of times. And even here, when Matt is talking to Elaine, or when the wall falls on him, or just before that, something tugs at his thoughts, something about the weather and Elaine, which made no sense. It's Elaine had just told Matt when she gave him back the medallion that Nynaeve had warned about a storm coming, and not meaning this wind. I think the Stormville is and the dice are specifically about the Sean-Chan attack. I think the dice are
Tuon.
Yes, Matt has to meet Tuon. And by being trapped under this building, he doesn't leave with the Red Arms and the Aes Sedai and everyone going to the farm. He's trapped here in Ibu Dar, and that facilitates his meeting with Tuon.
Also, Ibu Dar is almost directly due south from Shadar Logoth, where Rand kills Sammael, and that's at night.
Ah, yes.
Isn't it
So it's
always
not
night
so
in
it's-
Shadar Logoth?
Yeah,
No.
maybe figuratively, but no.
No, it
the
isn't.
sun-
It's
the
because
sun sets,
they
and
ride
then-
in the eye of the world. They ride in the daytime. It's only at night when it gets dark that Mashadar comes out.
No. It was like a...
So it's later today where Rand has.
It's always
his moment.
dark in Shadar Logoth.
always
I'll give you
dark
that.
in Shadar Logoth.
Figuratively dark. Okay, so we also learn here about 2 Red Arms called Fergan and Gordoran.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
All right.
They feature a little bit. They are later killed by the Golem. Apparently, the Golem runs past them and casually rips out both of their throats as well.
It seems to be his method of
That's his
fun.
go-to move.
Yeah, he's watched Roadhouse one too many times. Don't get too attached to Fergan and Gordoran. And then,
won't.
my last note was the dice stop the moment the wall comes down on Matt and he is trapped and he stays in Ibuda. And that is it for my chapter 39 notes. Are you guys ready to move along?
Let's do this.
Let's do it.
That takes us then to chapter 40 called Spears. I desperately wanted to fold in some kind of Britney Spears reference here, but I couldn't do it. So listeners, see what you can do with that. Vil, see what you can do with the summary.
Hit me with that,
Can I
baby.
give it a go?
Please.
One more time.
Oh,
Go
yeah.
away, Jody. I'm faster.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. There you go.
Yeah.
Hit us, Billy, one more time.
Hit us, Billy, one
there
more
we
time.
go.
Excellent. I should have seen that. That's plain as day.
Dude, yeah, that's right in front of your face. Fail.
Yeah, that's minus 5 points for Gryffindor.
Oh. Before you get stuck into this chapter, I think because there are multiple points of view, just stop after each and we quickly put it away, because going back to the first one after reading the last one is going to be
Yeah,
fucking
it's going to be
jarring.
jarring. You're right.
That quick.
Now, guys, Spears, multiple points of view of some really awesome people. We're starting with Galina Casban. Then we're
All our
going to
faves.
go to Sevanna. We're a little interlinked with some more shaido dirt. Merrick actually
Delicious.
felt bad for him, yep. And then we end off with Graendal. Oh, look at my skin standing up. Like, oh, baby,
Oh,
Graendal.
there's one more after Graendal.
Oh, did I miss someone? There was a very small little...
Everyone's
small
favorite Madral.
Shaidar Haran. Sorry, it's like at the end there, he snuck in out of the shadows. Man, what a man. Okay,
Literally.
literally. Galina, now, I have to confess something at this point. I have, for a very long time, and still even in this reread, been confusing myself and mixing my characters between Casban and Catswain.
What?
Really?
Yes.
Galina and Catswain.
How?
Yes. All the time. Like, I kept...
Is that why you hate Catswain
No,
so
no,
much?
no. Like, yes and no. Like, a part of it's like, hold on, but Catswain had Rand in the box. How's Rand not angry with her when she's there with Tylen in them? But I'm like, you guys don't pick it up. So I'm like, I'm missing something.
Ah.
So I keep thinking like that's like what is happening here? Anyway,
Wow, that's huge.
that's big. Yeah.
That's a
Too many
massive
names.
faux pas.
I'm not strong with names, guys. I look at faces and I don't see any of these people's faces. Look,
Ignore the surnames. Galina and Catswain. Catswain's surname is Meladrin.
yes,
or
I
something,
know.
right?
It's Catswain, Casban, super close to each other, super confusing. Both of them strong personalities and very in charge, head of the Red Arja, head of Arjas at a time. Like, you know, it could happen. So I apologize for that. Things are going to make a lot
has
more
happened.
sense to me.
So
Anyway, Galina's captured.
there's lots of that shit.
She's captured by Therava. Therava is one of the Shadow Dog wise ones. And the fact that she would have gone and ran into this battle and chasing after her tells me she might have been a maiden. I don't know. But it's kind of outside of the normal operations for a wise one to run after and hunt down escapees. Either way, she got her. She's her guy shine. And for the last 9 days, they've been staking her to the ground, sleeping face up, on like arms stretched out and legs stretched out. They've also been shielding her. But she's strong enough to break out of the shields, but she's done it twice. And after the second time, she's not doing it again. She's learned her pain. They wake up. They give her a drink. She doesn't dare spill a drop of water. She's been beaten for that. And then they run. And they run with an Aiel running behind her, switching her legs, and one dragging her in the front. And we know Aiel can run. Galina's never run like this in her life. It's like vomiting stories the minute they stop. Anyway, she, through this all, as this happening, there's a lot of reflection. She reflects on her hand and being part of the disposal of 2 Amaryllis. She has been raised to a Aes Sedai for 99 years, and 96 of them she spent as a Black Arja head. So she's legitimately on the bad end of things.
In the Black Archer, she's not a Black Archer head. She's the second in charge.
She's like, she knows the top. she's in with the top.
Alviarin is
basically.
the very top.
Yep.
She's the very next one. She's one of the few that knows that Alviarin is at the top because she's so close to it.
Yep. Now, when she sees Therava coming, she's anxious already. That's not a good time for her. She's being treated the way that she deserves after treating Rand. Better. Anyway. Now she dreams about the cat and the poor cat that she's running past, and things run before you are gotten by Therava as well. Anyway, I said I like cats. Later and much later, when she's properly fucked up and they get to she falls in the dirt, face down, and starts breathing and breathes in leaves but don't care. That's how properly fucked up she is. Then Sevanna joins the party. Not even better. Now Galina is faced with the traitor and thinks, yeah, okay, cool. This is the woman that betrayed them. Sevanna had her own designs, and then what she can do is like maybe manipulate the situation to tell, like, look, the tower can forgive you. We can let you back in. Let's not do this. But Sevanna replies with one word, Datsang. And two other wise ones reply very shortly after that with Datsang, Datsang. And so it is done. She is now stripped naked. And she thinks, yay, I'm getting clothes. And she thinks like, oh, I'm being elevated. Some things are right. And then she realizes what Datsang is. Let's stop there because that is kind of the end of the chapter there. Or not the chapter, the point of view.
The POV.
The POV. So we can have a quick discuss on that and then we'll go to the next.
Joe, did you have anything?
I did, but then I got sidetracked and I forgot it. Carry on. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Okay. I just noticed here that we get very few Galina points of view. So like all my hatred of this character is based on one, maybe two chapters leading up to Dumai's Wells. Like I think there's the one where they're busy beating Rand and she's sort of like talking to Beldine or the other Aes Sedai that's also beating Rand. And this. So like I mean, there's still a lot of chapters when after Fail is also captured with the Shaido, and I think Galina double crosses Fail in an escape attempt or something along those lines. But like the hatred that I'd built up for Galina up to this point is on very, very little information. But the information that we have about her is so strong.
She's not a likable character, and she's written that way very fast.
Yes. She's sweating a lot. So not even the non-power related trick is helping, right? Like she's Aes Sedai, she should be able to not sweat, but that's gone out the window. It's just like probably too much for her to concentrate on not doing it because being shielded shouldn't affect whether she's sweating or not.
In the words of Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan until they get hit in the face. She got hit in the face. Sweat is boring now.
Yes. Also, I was surprised that Galina is the head of the Red Arger. Mm-hmm. She's the highest.
Yeah. That's news to me as well in this chapter.
So she's higher ranked than Elida. And they even say here that in the Red Arger, this is from Galina's point of view, who is the leader of the Red Arger. So let's just take that from whence it comes. But she thinks here that in the Red Arger, many feel that the highest in the Red stands higher than the Amyrlin.
I believe that.
In Galina's own mind, she stands higher than Elida. Yeah, even though Elida is a Red and the Amyrlin Sea.
Yes. But like you said,
from Galina's
just take into account who's thinking this.
Yes.
This crazy bitch. Yeah.
And I mean, she is a bitch because she's thinking about how she's ordered the deaths of two rulers. So she's thinking about the Black Arger Supreme Council, where her just saying the name of rulers, condemns them to death, basically. And she's done that twice. And she's broken two Amyrlins. The way she's talking made it sound like that did not include Swan, but she did lead the circle that stilled Swan. So yes, RJ is feeding us.
I read it as that it is Swan. That the second one was Swan.
Felt as well. It was the second one that was Swan. Yes, I thought it was only the two that she was involved with. Maybe let's look back. Yeah.
I just also thought that it was interesting that Swan was stilled via circle. Do you need a circle to still someone?
I don't think you need it.
I think they did it by the law. I think
like
they followed every letter of the law.
It's like a action of many, not an action of one person. It's like shooting.
Although she does lead it.
Yeah, what is a shooting firing squad?
Like a firing
Yeah,
firing
like
squad, yeah.
there's so many people shooting, no one knows who killed the guy. So it's like I
Hmm.
didn't kill him. No, someone's bullet hit, but it wasn't mine. I aimed for the wall.
Didn't they? They used to give some of the men in the
Blanks.
firing squads wooden bullets
Mm.
that would disintegrate. Yeah. But no, she led the circle, and we know that with linked women, there's one person that directs the flows, and it was Galina, and she took pleasure in it. So fuck
Oh,
her.
she reveled in it.
Um,
She put her hand up for that
Yeah.
exercise. Like, ooh, I'll do it.
Ooh, me.
I was wondering, like, someone that was getting stilled would obviously have to be shielded at the time. So how does the person shielding that woman experience the stilling? That would be weird. Anyway, shower
I
thoughts.
suppose it's like you're pushing against something and all of a sudden it disappears and you just go, "Whoop," and you like fall forward.
fall
You're
over.
like, "Ah." Yeah. you're
Maybe
like
she
pushing on
falls
it.
over.
That's what I wanted
like,
to say.
Ah, I
channel
triggered a
the-
memory.
You did. Moritz is just triggering memories left, right, and center today. Shielding. They're one of the wise ones is constantly shielding Galina. So they haven't learned to tie off
No,
weaves yet.
no.
That's my thing. It's like, ha, we know something you don't. And another thing is a question. Where are they running to? Are they going back to the waste? Because I know they end up there, right? They take Galina back into the waste.
Therava, I mean,
We never see her again.
Sevanna heads into Kinslayer's dagger, and in the previous chapter talks about that's where they arrange to meet, and she hopes that Therava and the other wise ones can meet them there in time. So I think they are near
Yeah, well,
Kinslayer's dagger somewhere.
Jengai Pass. That's the pass to the waste.
It's
So I think-
east
because
of the Dumai's Wells attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're running for 9 days to get where they're going.
Don't know.
Just to meet up in the Kinslayers.
To meet up. And I mean, Savannah is still sort of calling the shots. So Therava, and eventually, Galina's end
Yeah.
is okay. There's a note I made just specifically about that. She wakes up whimpering from dreams in which Therava is in control of her for the rest of her life, which is exactly what happens to her. By the end of the story, Therava and a number of Shaido head back to the waste
With her.
and Galina has sworn obedience on the oath rod, so she can't break it.
They
And she's heading back into the waste to be Gaishane to Therava, her worst nightmare for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Exactly that thing.
because
happens.
that's what
Worse
that-
than Gai Sheng. She's that
No,
son.
no, she
Well-
is made that son, yeah, but it's against the tradition. It's
Yes.
against the laws. Even though the Shaidos manipulate or fuck the laws over by taking Wetlander Gaishan. She is Therava's. She was captured by Therava. So that link.
She's dressed in black here, right?
In this meeting where,
Put in black.
where she's made that song, Therava is disappointed because she wanted to retain her as Gaishane.
Yes.
Because Datsang can't work for you. They can't do any labor of any meaning. They can only they are shamed to the extent that they are not allowed to add value to anything. Where Therava actually wanted to make her a servant, a permanent
No,
Gaishane
but a
slave.
show servant, because she was going to put her in white silks. Like, you are my off-showing, like my Aes Sedai that works for me. Like, it was like a position of power tooling.
But not when
and
she's
forever.
Datsang, she can't order her
No,
around.
she can't. So she was
do
really
menial
upset, saying
tasks.
to Savannah, like, look, she's mine. Like, I caught her by the arm. And I mean, I made her make a shine. You can't take her away. But
Yeah.
we know Savannah does Savannah the way she wants to do.
That explains a lot because there's when the three name her Datsang, there's a look on Therava's face of like disgust
And disappointment.
And I thought it was
now.
because
Savannah?
Savannah said 3 wise ones have said it, and she doesn't consider Savannah a wise one, really. It's like, oh, shut your mouth. You're not part of this, really. So I was a bit confused there, but the Tsang explanation clears
No,
it
it's
up.
more,
Okay.
Somewhere along the line, Savannah has become a wise one and is recognized as a wise one by the other wise ones.
yeah, she has
I don't
she
think
has at this
Therava-
stage by the Shaido
No, Therava doesn't. like her.
and by the other wise ones on the other side, like, okay, cool, she's there now. You know, Rand changes things, so things have to be accepted in everything, even in their culture as well.
They don't accept Rand, but they accept that he's changing things. So it's like the
Yeah.
cake and eat it scenario.
exactly.
Should I accept Rand? Savannah wants to marry Rand. She wants to marry Rand.
Sevanna does, yeah. In some of Savanna's inner monologues, she thinks about how hard it is to control Therava. So even when Kadar in this next little section brings the oath rod and stuff, Savanna's always asking, like, what do you have for me to control female channelers? You know, like she asked about the Adam, do you have something similar for women? And then he brings the oath rod, and everyone's sort of, Sevanna thinks to herself,
We see what you're doing.
Yes, you're very obvious. Galina mentions here that men made her skin crawl, all men. So, yep, that tracks. Proto-red.
That's hardcore.
She won't attempt an escape until she is sure of success, which is, I think, what she plans to do with Fail later in the story. Beatings for spilling water from her mouth when in sight of a creek 6 feet wide. You know, so it's just beatings for the sake of beatings. It's not because of the water itself. And then, this is my favorite part of the section. She thinks to herself, surely she would be rescued. Elida wouldn't leave her sister unrescued. Surely Alviaran would send rescue. Nope, and definitely nope.
Alviaran just said, don't send rescue.
She gave the order herself.
Yeah.
So, sorry for you, Galina. You are screwed. All right, that's it. Vil, you can continue. Tell us about this meeting with Kadar.
Point of view, Sevanna, and she's watching Galina the Datsan working. But it's not called working. It's called menial tasking. She is moving a rock from one woman to another woman and then picking up another rock and moving it. So she's playing, cricket pitch runs with rocks all day long.
Running singles with rocks.
Running singles with rocks, yeah. The Therava is obviously not happy with this. And this is where the point is brought up, like where Therava says, like, hey, she was my to have. But I mean, things change so much. So my one note here is that they even take wetland as a Gashine. So it's weird that the eels still feel like this holding on to this, but they even changed that thing that they're holding on to, like, because they're taking wetland a Gashine, and then also not giving them it for a year and a day. It's for life. Like they're new rules that in modern day slavery.
Savannah thinks to herself, they should have a new name for Gashane.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
New word for Gashane that will never put off the white. How about slave?
Slave. There is a word for that already.
We already have a
the
word for
people in
that.
Shara, they'll tell you. Now, she wants, as you mentioned, Mo, she wants a way to control Therava. Like, she is looking for that. And she was also very aware that Galina will kill them when she gets a chance. Like, she reflects on that. Like, that woman she's not tamed yet. That she thinks making a Gashane is going to break her down to tame her. But I think that's also not really a reality. The man then speaks behind her. And the big shock and turn surprise, and it's old mate Kadar who hangs out, and he's got his crony, what's her name?
Not Kadir.
Not Kadir, no.
It's not confused.
He's a Baloo. He's been blown up. His skin, Lanfear made him like a floating air balloon. No, this, and then Mysar, assume that is obviously Graendal, that's hanging out with Kadar, who is Sammael.
Mysia, the pet name.
Mysia, yes. All right, he produces the oath rod, and he's got some backpack with him, little bags, and inside there's stones, square stones in this bag with red buttons, and it's called a Nar Bahama something that is going to open
Bahamas.
Yeah, it's going to open gateways for them, but it's just rocks and cool looking rocks. Graendal, like when we get to the Graendal chapter, laughs at Sammael for this. Like, you're giving them a thing and you actually give them the name, a full box. Like, you're going to get caught out for your trickery one day. But he doesn't this time, because they totally believe in those boxes, because it's nothing. It's someone's going to press it, and he's just going to channel a gateway to where he wants them to go, and that's the end of it. And he tells them this detailed story, like, "Ooh, it's got to recharge. Like, it takes about 3 days. It's like, ooh, power's got to be absorbed in, and you won't see the weaves.
Women can't touch it.
Like, this, because if the woman's going to touch it, they're like, this is a rock. I can channel. It's a rock." No. So he pulls a one over their eyes at that, and then that's sort of end of the chapter. They get that, or not again chapter point of view, and that's when we run to the next point of view of Merrick. Do you want to discuss? Not much in that one.
Just quick one. We've touched on some of the stuff I wanted to say about Therava also wanting Galina as Guy Shane, but I also noticed here that Sevanna is super observant. She's not an idiot, right? Like, she is blinded by her ambition, but she notices Mycia's, also Graendal's reactions to things. Like, she's sort of smiling at stuff, and she also notices that Kadar is telling them that there's a lot of haste, but there's no haste in his voice or anything. So she's picking up on these little cues. So she absolutely correctly mistrusts or distrusts them completely. Right? She's like, I'm not going to trust these guys wholly. But then on the flip side of that, she thinks that Kadar is motivated by a lust for gold. He definitely wants the gold. That seems so short-sighted. He's got all these magic items. He's got a female channeler at his beck and call, and you think that his main motivation is the gold that you're going to get him? That she's just maybe this is RJ showing us, while she is smart, her ambition and her plans are blinding her to stuff that she should be picking up on. I just thought that was an interesting, like, in a short span of time, she lists the things that she noticed that are sort of minor little details that make her distrust him. And then in the same breath, she's like, but he still wants all the gold that we've promised him. So I'll just pull him along. Seems weird. Anyway, that's it.
Little tangent, as we do, but I just imagined Sammael when he's like, where did all these little stone cubes come from in their painting? I just have this image of him like sitting back in his fort, like hand painting these things, just giggling to himself, like little miniature painting, like figurines, and just coming up with this. And then I'll tell them that they need to recharge, and then I'll tell them women can't touch them.
Sniggering to himself.
Like that painting, just like, I don't know. That's how I imagined it happened.
Like, that is legit how it happened. He's laughing about it, like, this is going to be so good. Like, fucking idiots.
So tell us about Merrick.
All right. Merrick presses the red button on the box, and a gateway opens. He's like, whoa. And he's like, I'm going through first. He says to his missus, cool, I'll go through first. Then he falls on his face because there's a step down. Another Sammael trick. Look, I'll make the gateway just a little bit higher on the other side so they all fall as well. They can't jump back out. So it's like a method that they can go through, but they can't back in, just make it a little bit higher. And everyone starts going through. He goes through in 6,000. And now this is specifically, when I say they, it's the Moshin. Merrick leads the Moshin Shaido, and he's going to take all 6,000. He wants to get there. And as he's looking at the progression of wagons and everything coming through, all of a sudden, gateway closed, boom, and slices 10 of them in half. Like, one guy specifically, like, in half through the front end.
Through the shoulders.
Yeah, through the shoulders, through that cut. It's like, oh man, I love it when bodies get cut in half in the show. There's always good body cuts. Like, we got the uppercut from Lan with the samurai. And then we had two-rack, bull, gut spill, slice in half. So good. And now we got some more people cut through the other way in half. Now, with that after all of this, also a maiden comes running and panting. Like, she's like, they're on us. Like, we walked into a trap. The Raina Hill has already encircled them. So Sammael has basically put them into death. And Merrick sees it that way. He then gets himself ready. Let's do what we need to. Where's the closest end? Up the hill. The first ones that will arrive is on the other side of the hill. That's the ones we attack. He starts singing his Wash the Spear song, and he prepares for what is going to be the death of all of them. There we go. End of that point of view.
There's only about 1,000 of them that made it through the gateway before it closed. And at the back, still on the other side, are his son and daughter.
Family.
So he and his wife have a quick little interaction here where he's like, okay, fuck, those guys are still back there. And he calls one of the other men over and he says, keep pressing this button until it opens again. Gives him the full box and says, just stay here and keep pressing the button. And you hinted at this earlier, Vil. I actually really felt sorry for these guys.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it was actually
like-
quite
Oh,
an
yeah.
affecting chapter. For Shaido, here we are sympathizing with Shaido.
I don't think he was Shaido.
No, he's
They're all
Moshin. They're all Shaido. So he's
No, he's Moshin.
Moshin is
But
is
that
a clan.
Is that a
It's
It's a sept,
a
isn't it?
sept. It's part of the Moshin Shaido.
I thought because there was a bunch of people that joined the Shaido that weren't originally
No,
Shaido.
those
but he
are
doesn't
the,
trust
them. Accept Rand.
Aswisaim.
okay.
What are
Because there
they
was
called?
mention.
The brotherless.
Yeah, the brother. What are they called? Ashusaimen. Siswai
Yes,
Aman.
that-
Siswai
Siswaya.
Aman.
No, the Siswayaman are the spears of the dragon.
Which is the other one then?
Mm.
Far out.
Al-Qaeda
Al-
Siswaya or something like that.
Those are the actual spears. There's another one.
I don't know, man. I don't speak old tongue.
Okay, well, we'll remember the name anyway. They are
You're
the
Shaido,
brotherless
and-
ones.
And he and his wife have like a really touching moment. Like they can't show affection in front of everyone. So like when this happens, he's like, okay, when they meet again later, like he and his wife,
I hope
then
you
they
don't
can
have to
actually
cry.
like have an emotional interaction. And that's when two different scouts come. And it sounds like there are three different groups attacking them
Yeah.
from three different sides. So like they've walked into like the middle of a closing trap, which there must have been an army moving through there. Later, John and Adley tells Rand that they encountered a force of about 9,000 to 10,000 of these Shaido, because I mean, this is just one group. There's a bunch of them of different sizes scattered all over the place. But so I'm assuming some of Rand's forces are moving anyway towards Ilion, and these guys were somewhere near them, and scouts picked up, and some forces like peeled off to come deal with these Shaido that have appeared out of nowhere.
I think there is a mention of them dropping Sammael dropping all these guys in scattered bunches between Ilion and somewhere like north of
Between
Ilion. So
Gildan
they
and
don't have
Ilion,
force
I think.
anyway that's moving.
Yeah.
Gildan and Ilion.
Yes.
So that's where the
The army
Wyramon
is,
and all those.
yes.
Anyway, so there's probably tons of Aiel,
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of them all scattered, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
free Shaido to kill. Excellent.
We're jumping ahead, but John and Adley later, when he talks about 9,000 or 10,000 Aiel that they encountered and killed, he says they didn't really slow us down. A force of 10,000 Aiel didn't really slow down Rand's army.
It's
Biggest army the world has
very
ever
big
seen.
army. Remember, we're talking
yeah.
about multiple forces now joined in together.
Yeah.
And as
But I'm
they
jumping
go,
ahead.
it grows. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll get there. But the bottom line is, I was surprised at how affected I was by this chapter from a Shaido point of
I
view.
was heavily affected by it. It was such an integral play. It's Merrick and his wife discussing their kids that's at the back, that's been cut off now, not through the gateway, so however far they're away. Also, like, cut off from their forces, their men.
Yeah.
They're now surrounded. You know, what do you say there? Like,
And then they face this battle with honor, right? Like, all right, time to wash the spears. This is where
Sing
we
the
die.
song.
Where's the closest group? That's where we're going.
Yeah. No, look, you made your bed. Now you got to sleep in it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before. It's the same with the White Cloaks or everyone in Amador. They're not all assholes.
No.
They can't all be assholes.
No.
I mean, like the World War II Nazis. Not all the Germans were Nazis. Some of them were like rad people. You know, you're just caught up. That's just the clan you're in. You know, you're like, oh shit.
That's why it's so sad.
Don't lump me in with those guys. I
suppose, yeah.
So
All right.
All right, forge ahead, Vil.
Okay, a little quick one. After Sammael had his little laugh with Graendal, and they were like, look how funny we are, look how good we are. I know, we're getting to Graendal first. I thought we were going to Shaidar Haran already. No, Graendal. We're at the point of view of Graendal, who's looking at the last gateway closes, and she tells Sammael, you know, calling it full boxes, like, seriously, mate, one day you're going to get caught. Sammael is laughing. He scattered them now, all the Shaido between Ilion and Galdian.
Sure,
Yeah, that
that
place.
place.
Sorry,
That's-
I'm really bad with my
Yes, we know.
pronunciations
That's
today.
good.
And still laughing.
Today.
Today.
Thanks, guys.
Mart said it first.
Don't worry, Vil. Our fans love it, and I do too.
Now, Graendal warns Sammael that, you know, he's going to get caught out. Rand's going to get you. And he laughs. walking into his apartments before he closes the way, not the way gate, the gateway, laughing that Althor is not going anywhere. He knows exactly where he is, and like, go boy, go walk into your trap.
He says, Althor isn't going after anyone. All I have to do is wait.
Yep.
You think?
Wait till the next chapter, motherfucker.
Sure.
All right, that's really it. Graendal opens her way to her place, and she looks at her little pets naked, frolicking in the pool. She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna have some sex now."
What I took from that is what you said before, Joe. Like I originally thought that he'd scattered them all over Randland, but it's specifically in that section between Gildan and Ilion.
Where they're all going to die.
Yes, pretty much.
Yes.
They do gather a force again, like they do meet up again, and when they kidnap Fael, remember it's the Shaido that Perrin is chasing.
Yeah.
Perrin is in Gildan, yeah, so that tracks.
He is. Yeah.
Okay. Right, Phil, take us home.
Last one, Shaidar Haran. These two, those two fools have closed their gates, holes, portals. Shaidar Haran sneaks out of the shadows and he sniffs the portals. One smells like sharp end of a blade and the other one smells like a pointy end of something. And that's how he knows it's male and female. But he can smell the weaves. He's a badass, this dude.
And see the residue.
He can't see, don't have eyes.
He can smell the gate holes, Joe. Is that what you're about to say?
He can smell the difference between male and female holes.
Yes, gate holes. He can, much like a dog does. Anyway, and then he checks it all out and he's like, okay, as long as the Lord of Chaos rules, and buggers off back. He's like, oh, I'm getting weak. I need to get back to the ball. And then he makes a gate hole through the shade and pisses off back to Shadar Logoth. End. Chapter done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a little cameo.
He does some cool things here, though. He seeks the edge of the shadow that he needs to travel. So he travels like a Fade. You know how Fades can enter shadows and come out anywhere else there is a shadow, which is a cool power. We never see it used to great effect at all. But he also picks up an Aiel spear and then sets it aflame. So with the true power, I would assume. You can't do anything with the one power.
It'll have to be, yeah.
Yeah. Which is pretty intimidating. He is a badass.
He's a dark one. You should call him Lord.
The Hand of the Dark. Well, you can. In your power structure, that is demanded, not in mine.
That song.
And it was interesting the effects of him being away from Shaido Ghul. It's what was it? An ache
weak.
and a faint weakness through his limbs, like an ache through his back and neck, and then like a weakness through his limbs. Like he has to get
like
back.
the Ogier longing.
Yeah, interesting.
But I think it affects him far quicker. Like the Ogier could be like years out of him. But he's like,
he just
stepped away.
He just pulled out of the shadow.
A couple of hours and max.
No, like a minute, literal seconds. He was out of the shadow. He came from the shadow.
Yeah.
Came out. He's like, oh, yo,
Yeah,
this
but
is
he could have
bad.
come
Go
from
back.
somewhere else.
Jody,
We're
trying to sell that the Dark
never
One
know.
cannot be away from his hole. He cannot roam. Because if he could roam, he
But he's
would
on
have
a
roamed a
whole
long
mission.
time ago. He can't roam. He's like quick in and out.
All right.
It's like, it's like
He has to be
swimming into a pool,
near his evil
going to the
mountain.
bottom and getting out the little things that you dropped in the pool. That's what he's doing. He's going, swimming up, like having a breath. It's like every time he goes into the pool and out.
Oh, he's just getting his
These
sinkies.
Metaphors of
Yeah, he's getting his sinkies. So same.
All right, thanks, Phil. That was a marathon session with those two pretty significant chapters. They were not short ones, but a lot happened there.
And the best part of it, my notebook has got no page left after all of this. It's done.
Oh, wow. Perfect.
We could auction that off.
I've got 5 of
Yes.
them already,
Once
6
we're
of them.
famous.
It generally goes like a book,
Collect the
a
whole
notebook.
set.
Yeah.
Villy got to do Dumas Wells in the last book. So, Joe, you get to do the final chapter in this book. And just because there were 3 chapters, Villy had to take the first 2. Admirably done.
No, Billy did an amazing job.
Absolutely.
I
Loving the energy.
like those 2 chapters a lot. I thought they were
were
the
good.
Matt chapter and it was all the baddies. Like some of them getting their comeuppance
Yes.
and some not. But I like talking about the baddies. They have personalities
true.
too. They have
Yeah,
lives. They have
we know.
children.
It's on brand.
They have moms and dads. Some of them killed their own
They
moms
have
and
dreams
dads.
and ambitions.
They've things they want, needs, desires.
What I desire is to move on to the next chapter, which is chapter 41, called A Crown of Swords. Why don't you put a crown on this book for us, Joe?
Alrighty. Let's do this.
Here we go.
Rand awakes from a fever dream in Mim's arms. She's screaming at someone, "I won't let you kill him." And I thought, holy shit, what a way to wake up. What's happening? But he's in his own bed, and he's like relieved. He's like, oh, wait, I'm back in my rooms. And I'm like, I thought, good call, man. Like, when she told him, no, we're going back to our rooms. Because he immediately wakes up, recognizes, looks where he is, and goes, yes, I'm in my own space. Good. And I thought, yeah, no Aes Sedai died today. Yeah. Talking about Aes Sedai, everyone is there, and he is naked. He's covered with a sheet at the moment, but totally buff. Let's see, who is there? Amis, Cadsuane, Bera, Karuna, Samitsu, Corel, Tashiva, Flynn, Erishman, and Jonan Adley. He's back. You know, he's been running messages between Ilian and Rand this whole time. When I read his name, I was like, who the fuck is Jonan Adley? Don't remember this dude at all. But he's there. He's back. Rand asks, like, how am I alive? You know, he says, like, I've seen Fane's Shadar Logoth dagger in action. I didn't think anybody could survive that. And you hear, like, Cadsuane's like, Shadar Logoth. That explains a lot. She tells him that he has Flynn and Samitso to thank for his healing, and Corel as an afterthought.
Yeah.
I don't know, because Corel was in the room. I suppose and her too. Let's not make her feel bad. But yeah, 3 people. I get the feeling as well that it wasn't just that one healing that we saw written in the book. That there's constant work has been done on him over time.
Because Corel wasn't there originally when Flynn rocked up, and up at that point, Samitsu is the only one that had healed him. Corel wasn't around, but apparently she is extremely talented at healing as well, second only to Samitsu.
Yes. So thank God, got the 2 best. Yeah. Well, 3 best if you count Flynn. I mean, amongst all channelers. Yeah, so Cadsuane wastes no time and immediately dives into the "you need to be guided" speech that she has undoubtedly been dying to give Rand. But during this conversation, we find out that, you know, Rand's like, whatever, later. How long have I been out? He's only been out for 2 days. Only 2 days. But he's like, oh, shit, sweet. Because it could have been far worse than that. So he announces that he's going to get up now, and if they all want to stare at his balls, they're welcome to, but he has spent too much time with the maidens to be shy about nudity anymore. No one leaves, so apparently they either want to call his bluff or they want to stare at his butt. So Karuna at least, is the only one that has the decency to turn her back and actually look a little bit red in the cheeks as he gets up and strides through the room completely naked, and it's packed with people. He walks slowly, he is very, very wobbly still, to the wardrobe and just starts getting dressed. Once clothed, but still unbooted, he announces that he needs to talk to the Ashaman alone. Everyone get the fuck out. And surprisingly, most of them go. Amis, having been around long enough to know what that Rand likes to sneak off, whenever he kicks Aiel out of the room, he tends to disappear. She says she'll only go if he promises that he's going to stay put. And he's like, just like, in a very Aes Sedai answer, just shows here his bare feet and is like, you know, where do you think I'm going with no boots? Does it look like I'm going to go anywhere? But that's not an answer.
That's not an answer, Rand.
But he's learned from the Aes Sedai. So as the last of them leave, even Cadsuane, Rand puts on his boots and starts preparation to sneak off immediately. Amis was right, obviously. So, you know, like us reading this chapter for the first time, everyone is thinking, like, who the fuck is Adley? Or like me, you know, that was me, but other people are thinking, where has he been? You can see during this chapter that Cadsuane, Amis, and Tashiva, all of them are like kind of staring at Adley and staring at Rand. And when he orders them out, they're like, all right, you could tell that Cadsuane's thinking like, all right, he's going to speak to Adley. Adley's brought some news. Like, what are you up to, Rand? Everybody knows he's up to something. Min is not so surreptitiously trying to, get him to stay. Rand figures she's had a viewing. And of course he's right. So like while he's been out, she had a viewing that Cadsuane is going to teach him and all the Ashaman something that they need to know, that they must know, but they are not going to like learning it from her. Humility, I imagine, that they are not gods. But I thought maybe it's also just a good recipe for blueberry muffins or something. But it's not. So, boots on. Rand gathers his Ashaman, gets a report from Adley, tells him his army has reached the Ilianan hill forts sooner than anticipated, because guess who? Wyramon left the foot behind and charged with the cavalry. Surprised? No. Rand's like, that fucking guy, he thought, he's going to take hill forts on the back of horses? Probably. He probably thinks that he could.
He can take anything with his horses, in his opinion. Can't you remember the guy's attitude?
His flying horses.
I imagine him running up to the forts with his horses and like hitting them like the knights in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, just hitting a castle walls with their swords. Like
with their swords. Yeah. Yeah, exactly that.
Have at you.
But what Wyraman and his horse couldn't outrun or outpace was the Aiel, the 100,000 of them, that are with them. So they were also involved in the ensuing battles. And the Ashaman, of course. The Ashaman just opened gateways and traveled there. End of story. So the Ashaman attacked the palisades first with the one power, but that just drew out Sammael, who kicked everyone's asses.
Yeah. Man alone.
Yeah, so like man alone. Adley's like, dude, if there were like 3 or even 2 more of this guy, we would all be dead. Like none of that army would have survived. Tashiva gives him such a dirty look, which we obviously understand why. But he doesn't. But Tashiva doesn't get why they would risk sending Rand or the Ashman to attack Sammael, because he's just going to flee and hide as soon as he feels anyone as strong as Rand channeling, like, they've got this giant army, use it. And Adley, like the good guy, enlightens him that they could save the army by fighting with the one power. And I don't think, well, I know that never even occurred to Tashiva. Like, save people?
Yeah.
What a weird concept.
Yeah.
Sammael is ripping the army to shreds every time they attack anything. And when Adley left to come back here to this room, Wyramon was still just sending wave after wave of his own men to their deaths.
He does have some Zap Brannigan qualities to him.
Zap Brannigan mixed with King Arthur from Quest for the Holy Grail. Just like the worst, the worst two things mixed together.
You know what it's going to do as soon as all his last cavalry men has been sent to their slaughter? He's going to hide in a barrel like the wily
bravely
fish.
Run away. Like the wily fish. So yeah, that's all Rand needs to hear. He's heard enough. And he lets them know that today they are all going to help him kill Sammael. The Ashaman only nod, except for Tashiva, who is clearly, visibly shocked. I'm like, control your emotions, Agenor. You're supposed to be in disguise here. But like, this chapter is full of everybody did this except for Tashiva, and then they did this except for Tashiva. It's like, yeah, RJ, we get it, dude. Rand is expecting Min to give him shit about it, but she actually just agrees to keep the maidens outside occupied while he does it. She's like, I think I can keep them occupied in conversation for about an hour. It's like, holy shit, a whole hour? But anyway, she's good at that. Even though she knows that they are not going to be happy with her when they find out. I mean, not to mention Amis and Sorelia. Like, I would have sold Rand out straight away. I would have just run to Sorelia. He's planning to go. But she's like, I love this dude. She's, yeah, like, I would not take my chances with Amis and Sorelia. No. But anyway, she loves him. Her commitment is 100% to him. She's going to take the brunt of all the Aiel coming down on her when they find out that she covered for him. Good on you. So Rand and Tashiva stare at her butt as she leaves, and then he weaves a gateway to Camelland and back to our good old friend Bashir. Bashir's back, baby. I was so stoked. I was like, oh, fuck, we're going back to Bashir. Side note, when Rand opens the gateway, I quote, something crooked and red spiderwebbed across the outside of the void. is that the taint from Fane's dagger? Is this like an effect now
Ooh.
that the extra evils are having when he assumes the void and channels?
I remember reading that and I didn't make a note about it. But yes, that seems to fit. I mean, that's what's new. So it must be.
So like crooked, the word crooked and spider webbed, that's obviously evil.
Yes.
But the kind of crooked is not the typical evil. So I'm figuring
it's not the oily
this is
black
a new thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same description as regular old evil,
No.
as Willie would put it. The special evil. So that's what I figured.
I like it.
Higher level evil.
You know, everybody just,
Sold.
chaos evil. All right. So Bashir is a bit surprised to see Rand so soon. Like, he knows what they're about to do, like what they're there to do, and he's prepping and everything. He's on the same page. He just expected it a bit later. No worries though. He's a consummate professional, and everything is ready. Like, he can get everybody ready to go in a second. However, Dira is there too, and she is dressed to kill. I mean, like literally kill, with knives behind and daggers and all of that shit. But Rand tells Bashir, like, no wives today. She gives Bashir a look that would sterilize any other man, and a promise that they will talk at length about this later. And Bashir just looks at her calmly and says, at length. And Rand thinks, he must be suicidal. And not jokingly. Like, this man wants to die. Like, literally, this is I better use him quickly before he's not going to be around.
Oh, his wife takes
to
him
help
from
me
him.
later.
This is the thing, though. It's not just Bashir having to leave his wife. Almost every one of the
officers as
officers
well.
have got their wives as well, and they were going to go into battle with him as well. So it's like a doubling of the army. Like, Rand.
Well, no.
But Rand's like,
It's not a
no
doubling
woman is
of
going
the
to die
army.
today.
Okay,
because
so
of me.
doubling of the officer count.
Yes, maybe.
Okay. But yeah, there's a lot of men that's going to come back from this battle getting it from Saldaean woman.
Yes.
Yeah. As we read later, most people, I think if not all of them, come back. It's not much of a battle.
No.
For them, at least. No. So, Bashir and Rand quickly go over their plans. Bashir's like, do you have time for some punch? And he's like, no punch.
I took the
We've
same
got shit
note.
to do. Let's go.
Bashir about to march. Like, is it time for punch? Rand's like, no punch.
Is there a little shot before we go, little Dutch courage? And he's like, no, got all the courage I need, let's go. So they have a new regiment of men, the Legion of the Dragon, and they have blue coats buttoned up at the side as to not interrupt the red and gold dragon's sigils embroidered on their chests.
Cool
Now,
detail.
I had not remembered these dudes at all. Did not know about them. But apparently there's already 15,000 of them with crossbows. Like, those are the ones that just have crossbows. There's more. And the rest have this heavy, wide shield. Rand doesn't understand this. Nobody's got a sword? What the fuck? Apparently, this was Matt's idea. Kind of like Matt brought it up and Bashir fucking loved it and said, like, let's roll with this. I'm gonna take this as far as it can go.
Yeah.
So they got this brand new, like, ranged attack unit. I imagine the shields are there to protect the crossbow men and stuff. So yeah, they've got these new crossbows. It's all automatic and stronger, and yeah, it's going to be awesome when we get to see it in action.
Is a
'Cause we don't really see it
big
yet.
problem with crossbows. They take a long time to reload, which makes the fire of the crossbows exposed and unprotected for a long time, because you've got to also look down while you reload and doing this thing. So the shields is like that Roman shield protection that they do. So as soon as they finish
that's what I
fire, they
figured.
step in front and they shield the whole lot. No arrows can penetrate through, and then they reload, and then they step out, and then chip, 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 off the crossbows go, because crossbows don't get volleyed, they get aimed shooting straight. That was a major difference in warfare in the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages, the crossbow.
Middle Ages recap. But I have a memory about this. Now, I don't know if it's from the books or not, but isn't there like a winding mechanism on them? Or is that like actual historical fact? Or is this something that Matt also brings into later on so that they can reload faster?
I think they talk about it later in these books. I think
maybe
there's like
do it
an
later.
improvement, an improved crank or something that allows them
Yes.
to reload faster.
Like a little handle you roll and you roll the
Maybe it comes
string
from
back.
Idrian at the university or something. You know, she built that ballista.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know where I'm getting this idea from, but
I've also somewhere in some media, Joe, absorbed some talk about like an improved crank to reload faster.
yeah. So it could be from
Did
anywhere.
we see these guys in action at all?
Not yet, no.
They've got to be in the last battle.
No, but I mean
For
here
sure.
in this attack.
No.
No.
Bashir makes a big deal about saying these guys are not quite as ready as we would have planned for them, but they will suffice. And so, like, there's a bit of talk about them, and then I don't remember them playing a specific part.
No,
in
because
this attack.
the minute Sammael ducks and pulls Rand away from the battle, everyone else that's left over there is kind of like, hey, why are we fighting these people? Like, they basically hand
Let's
over
get
Iliad. Like,
Yeah, the Ilianers attack them because they're being attacked, but when they find out who it is, it's like, oh, okay, no, shit. Never
Sorry,
mind.
everyone. Sorry.
Chill out, everyone. Sorry. Yes. In his own specific idiom. So even though they have arrived a few days early, Rand and his dudes, everyone is ready to go in a remarkably short time. Like I said, consummate professionals. Lines are formed, orders are given. Everyone's ready to kick ass, you know? The Asherman, I dig this as well. Like the Asherman are just jonesing for a fight. They got like these silly grins on their faces. I think it's like even Flynn is like kind of like bouncing up and down. Yeah. Bouncing up and down like, oh, let's go. Except for Teshiva, who's frowning. I'm like, God damn it, RJ. I am already suspicious of him. It's good. All right. If you weren't suspicious as a first-time reader, you are by now.
I wasn't.
Bashir raises...
wasn't either.
No?
As a first-time reader. I
like
the
the Shiva. I was like, yeah, man, this is the best Asherman. Look at him go.
I was fooled.
Yeah. He is not the best one.
No.
Spoiler alert.
Well, let's just be honest. We didn't pay a lot of attention either to the fine print.
No, look. There's a lot of shit we missed as first-time readers.
I will say this. I took special note of Teshiva the first time I read, but his reactions I misread because of context. I thought he was an Asherman, and he was on Rand's side because he was Asherman, right? And because he's sort of like talking down to the Aes Sedai, he was sort of throwing his weight around. He was like, okay, cool, yeah. I was on board with the Asherman, sort of like stamping down their authority and that sort of thing, bringing in Dharma Flynn and sort of being a bit insolent. I thought like his sort of borderline recalcitrant behavior, like his lack of respect, sometimes the way he looked at men and stuff, was more of an indication of like just how wild the Asherman are as a concept, like how unpredictable and erratic they could be. But after finding out who he is, all those things read completely differently, like they do for us now. Like in my notes, I call him Agenor. I don't call him Teshiva, specifically because of that.
I also just called him Agenor just a few pages back. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, in hindsight, now that we know, obviously, we can see all these things differently. But it should have been clearer upon the first read if we had been paying attention. But the thing is, we didn't know we needed to pay so much attention the first time.
No, we
reading.
did. We just didn't realize it because we knew at the stage of the Black Arjas infiltrated the tower. But we never thought that the Black Tower could also be infiltrated by the Black Arja. It's Tower, then Arja, and now there's Black. So... I mean,
like
I
was paying attention,
foolish.
but the context is different. With the reveal in mind, you read those things completely differently. Anyway, we digress again.
And I think he's revealed in book 9 during the cleansing of the source, isn't he? Like that's where we figure out, we learn that he is that he's Agenor. Because he's one of the ones.
Call back, but I think it's when they attack Rand.
So.
I don't know if it's at the cleansing. Maybe it's at the cleansing.
I think so. That's what I think.
There's an attack on Rand with a couple of turncoat Asherman, and then that Rand tracks down to Farmadding. Remember that whole thing?
Yes, I do.
But I could be conflating storylines.
There's time for
that. We'll get there.
Another 2.5 years of time for us to go through that. So Bashir. They're all ready to go, all right? Bashir raises his sword and calls out, "My Lord Dragon," and then it's followed by shouts rippling down the lines, "The Lord Dragon!" Rand seizes Saidin and opens a gateway, 4 paces by 4 paces, right into the great square of Tamaz. Like, fuck all that outside the city fighting with, towers and traps. Straight into the heart, into the great square of Tamaz, into the heart of Ilion. Tying off the weave. He knows how to tie off weaves. They pour through. Rand and the Ashman go first, and then the rest of the soldiers. It's the mounted Saldaeans. And a whole bunch of other people, I imagine. While Rand weaves a loudspeaker screaming, "I am the Dragon Reborn, bitches." I'm paraphrasing a smidge. But yeah, the whole city hears him with that weave. Bashir and his detachment head straight, and then there's like 2 more that flank off to the sides. And their mission, scare the bejesus out of everyone in the city. The idea there being that they clear out all the non-combatants from the place before absolute hell is going to break loose. So the charging men are screaming and the channelers are throwing fireballs through the sky, except for Tashiva, who's creating blue lightnings. It's like, all right, okay. Again, Tashiva, standing apart. Rand weaves another small gateway almost immediately, one to the top of one of the towers of the king's palace. Apparently, you don't need to know the area at all if you only want to travel a short distance. Capital T travel. And he also wants a good vantage point of the city. He can see all the way out over the marshes surrounding the city from up here, and of course over all the rooftops and everything. So he then, along with all the other Ashaman, as previously planned, send out like no specific flows of every element fanning out over the whole city and all the surroundings. And they trigger all of Sammael's traps and wards.
Genius.
Genius. Like a non-specific weave, just flows. And where these flows touch each other, they create explosions of sparks and colored steam. And they say in the book, like, enough to make an illuminated jealous or something, you know. I got the idea, like waves, like when you've got like waves coming back and forward in a like kind of riptide and they come together and stuff, but way cooler. So that kind of effect. He then releases the source along with all the other Ashaman, as planned again beforehand. And we wait, because he told them, like, listen, no one, after we've set off all the traps, no one channel, because if I feel you channeling, I'm going to assume you're Sammael and I'm going to kill you. So everybody fucking let go. So the weaves all disappear, and then you can hear all the random shouts and small skirmish sounds from around the city as Bashir's men clash with Sammael's Ilionaires, you know, and like, but Rand's basically just atop this tower in silence, just waiting. Like, so much time passes, actually, that Rand thinks that Sammael isn't going to show himself. That Luz's memories had actually just been, honestly, the ramblings of his own madness. But it's really just the calm before the storm. Because he got all of this, like, these ideas and stuff from his memories with Luz Theron. So, big part of the planning. But now, nothing's happening. So it's just the calm before the storm. And then he feels a man channeling. Enough power for a gateway in the direction of the Grand Hall of the Council. So he weaves his own into the Grand Hall. And as he sets foot on the other side, the tower he was just standing on explodes, sending fire and shards of stone and dust and all kinds of shit through the gateway, knocking him to the ground. Before he can get up off his face, because it's on his face, Sammael again channels what I call fire rain through the roof around the area of Rand's gateway, and one of these like long tendrils of red hot fire rain clip him in the heel. So, just to recap now, Rand has literally just woken up from being this attack. He's got this new scar, he's weak, and now he's also been struck in the heel. So the rest of the time he's kind of like hobbling around with this wound in his heel. So he rolls onto his back, and he is about to return Balefire when he remembers Cadswain slapping him in the face, telling him never to do that again. So he kind of alters the weave before he sends it off to copy the fire rain, and he sends it back through the roof and then jumps to his feet and hobbles out of there. While he's busy running along, he sees some people. There's another one of these little comic scenes where he sees a servant kind of like pop his head around the corner, and then like they lock eyes, and the servant slowly moves backward, like to disappear. Like, maybe if I move slowly, he won't see me. And Rand just like watches him slowly move away, like, okay. And then carries on running. And then he hears Sammael over the whole city, using the same PA system weave that he used earlier, to scream, "Ilion belongs to me. I won't destroy what belongs to me." You know, and I'm paraphrasing here basically, but he says like, "Let's take this fight outside if you've got the balls to follow me." Sammael weaves a gateway for Rand to follow, It's pretty obvious. And they head to Shadar Logoth. Dum dum da. Yes, we're heading to Shadar Logoth. The sun is almost down now, and you don't want to be in this neck of the woods at night.
No.
So Rand figures he should, get moving and finish this as fast as possible. Good plan, Rand. So a cat and mouse game ensues. Well, at least Rand thinks it's a cat and mouse game. He's the only one running around looking. But he doesn't know that yet. Sneaking around the city, feeling for Saidin, feeling for channeling. And here he feels, and I quote, "The Dark One's taint on Saidin beating in time with a knife slash across his ribs." Mm-hmm. Is this where he gets the idea for the cleansing?
Maybe.
Like, is this I think this is the moment. Because later on he'll remember this and go like, hey, wait a minute. Saidin, Dark One's taint, slash on ribs. I figure this is it.
I think
this is what
Flynn also makes a comment about it when he heals him. That the two seem to be cancelling each other out. So maybe they speak about it as well. But the clues certainly are there for him.
Yeah, but that's not in Shadar Logoth. I mean, Shadar Logoth plays a big part in the cleansing. So I think this is where, like, the Dark One's taint and, the slash across his ribs. But now, in Shadar Logoth, he's it's like a pumping. He feels a beating in time. Like, I can feel it.
What Flynn notices is that the reason the evils aren't spreading or getting worse is because they are also fighting each other. So Rand knows that there is some kind of a reaction between them, to put it plainly, boringly.
Indeed. Well, here it begins. Yeah. Here's that healing, and over here we get some more clues as to what's coming.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Those two dark ones are in competition. It's also it goes back to that whole theme. There's a middle class. The middle class is the normal dark.
Here we go.
Okay. I'm going to carry on now.
Dude.
There's nothing else, all right? Before we get into a discussion about how the disappearing middle class. Anyway, he sees someone, while he's skulking about, dash between the buildings in the distance. And now he realizes, well, he heard screams when he first entered the city. And wait, nothing lives here to scream. So he figures Sammael brought some henchmen with him. Poor bastards. And sure enough, just around the corner, he sees some Trollocs. And he also sees Leia. Hey, how the hell is she still alive? So she attacks the Trollocs. FYI, Leia, however you want to pronounce it, the maiden that they left behind last time when they were here and they couldn't find her. She's still alive. She attacks the Trollocs and kills them, obviously. She's still, that side of her is still 100% Aiel. And Rand calls out to her and chases her down. He's like, oh, wait, come here. When he catches up, she has clearly lost her mind. Living in this place has not been kind to her. She's hissing at him, mine, no one may come here, at him. And he's trying to calm her down. He's like, Leia, it's me, it's Randall Thor and everything. And she recognizes him, but she just freaks out again and calls it the car and veils herself and wails and runs off into the distance. And she's gone again. But Rand's like, well, fuck, I can't leave her behind again, because her name is, burnt into my memory along with hundreds of others, and follows her. So as he comes around the corner to follow her, he runs into 4 Trollocs and a Madral. He instinctively channels the Sword of Fire, and then immediately thinks, oh, I should have done what the Ashaman done at Dumai's Wells, but it's too late now. But he, anyway, deals with them quite easily. His first attack is the Madral with one slice of his blade, chops its head off. I don't even think that Madral had time to raise its sword. And then he attacks the Trollocs and, deals with them quite quickly. But, of course, Sammael feels the channeling, and it's time to dance among the lightning bolts again, as he rains down destruction on his general area. So, Rand flees into a building where the floor collapses underneath him. You remember, everything's old and dingy here. He manages to catch the rim of the hole that has opened up under him, but the wound in his side is still pretty fresh, and he's about to fall down into this hole when a man appears and grabs his arm and helps him up. So we all know this Duis is Moradin, but Rand, with loses memories, doesn't recognize him. Well, new body, new face, and all that stuff. So we've seen, they do describe him in the book, so a new reader should recognize him as this tall man with the black hair and we've met him before. But Rand doesn't. So, however, he is clearly not an ordinary man. For one, he's in Shadar Logoth and doesn't seem to be perturbed about it. And also, he calls Rand a fool. The second he grabs his arm, he's like, "You bloody fool." And he names drops Sammael as well. So he knows what's going on, obviously. Like, Rand's like very suspicious now of this dude. So Rand asks him, like, "Who the hell are you?" Like, but he replies with only "I'm a wanderer just passing through." Like, oh, Jesus Christ. But during this conversation, while this is happening, a wave of Mashadar starts flowing over the balconies above them. I imagine they're like in like an amphitheater, look, maybe a place, maybe it was like an old governmental building or something, and there's like a circle floor in the bottom, and then all these massive balconies going up and out. So massive dome as well. That's what I figured they were in. And this wave of Mashadar starts flowing over these balconies above them. And when they realize it, they both instinctively react by shooting it with balefire, because of course,
as you do.
That's the go-to, the go-to weave amongst these guys. And their streams cross. The famous scene, all right? They both convulse. Their heads feel like they're inside of a brass bell being rung, and their vision blurs, and they are incapacitated for a moment. But luckily, Mashadar is also not a fan of balefire and has since retreated, giving them time to recover. And Rand's like, what the hell happened there? And Moradin is also in the dark, so to speak, about what the hell happened. He doesn't know what happened. But now they are linked forever. Sammael, of course, felt that balefire. So, of course, time to run again, which they do, led by Moradin. He's like, "We should run." And he makes haste. And the lightning falls down on their position again. But Rand has now lost the void. He did that when all this shit happened, and he's still disorientated, and he's not recovered from Fane's attack. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on now with him. And he's stumbling more than running while the building crumbles around him. And they both burst out into the side street. And again, Rand asks, "Who are you?" Thinking he might be one of Taim's men, or Taim's men, after seeing the man shoot balefire from his hand. So he must be a channeler. And he tells Moradin, who he doesn't know is Moradin, like, he doesn't have to fear Aes Sedai. He can go to the Black Tower, like, we can help you. And Moradin snaps, like, I've never feared Aes Sedai, and gives Rand some tips, basically, on how to find Sammael. Like, you need to start thinking with him. He doesn't want to tell him, because he knows where Sammael is, but Rand's just running around in circles. He's like, "You are a fool. Like, you're lucky I don't want to kill you, because if I wanted to kill you, you'd be dead." Rand realizes, through some very blatant prompting from Moradin, that Sammael is at the Waygate, because Sammy likes to kill his enemies near one of their great triumphs, or somewhere near that they have marked. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And Rand's like, "Oh, wait, I marked a Waygate." And now the Trollocs in the city that came through that Waygate are not going to be alive very much longer. Afterthought. So yeah, he put the ward on the Waygate. That's where Sammael is. So turning to leave, Moradin tells him, like, please don't get killed. I have to change so many plans if you die. And disappears down an alley. Rand runs after him to get more answers, like, "Don't die? What plans? What are you talking about?" But he's already gone. Yeah. And it's impossible that he weaved a gateway. It's like within a second. And that's where Rand realizes that there was not enough time, first of all, to weave this gateway. Also, there are no traces of a gateway. He would have been able to see the residue. And he didn't feel the man channel either. And come to think of it, he didn't feel him when he channeled balefire either. But and just this thought makes his vision blur again, and he can see Moradin's face in his mind, clear as day, for a second. So he shakes his head clear of this, and now, well, this dude's fucking gone. I got shit to do. He refocuses on Sammael and heads to the Waygate, or in the general direction of. Along the way, he manages to regain the void and, embrace the source once again, and he sees more Trollocs and more Madrol, but he leaves them alone, knowing that, like, they've come through the Waygates. They are going to die horribly anyway, and I don't want to give away my position again by channeling. So before reaching the old Ogier Grove where the Waygate is, he sees a tower, about 50 paces or spans, or I don't know what measurement it was, and it looks pretty stable, all things considering other towers in the area. So he heads up there, so he can have the high ground. I'm thinking he thought, if it worked for Obi-Wan, it'll work for me. Again, we await atop a tower for Sammael. It's like, Rand is very predictable. This is the second tower you've been on top trying to find Sammael. And he finally shows himself. So he's looking down, like Rand's looking down, and there's no movement, there's no nothing. And Sammael kind of like walks out between these columns from another old building, looks like an old palace, into the square in front of the waygate. Rand sees Shadar oozing out of the balconies above Sammael, falling directly down onto him like a wave and like gathering speed. So this is where it gets confusing, Willie, but not too confusing. Rand readies balefire. This is his one chance. He's, again, straight to the balefire. But before he can use it, he hears a woman shrieking in agony and turns his head to see Laia atop a mound of rubble, and she's slowly being engulfed by Shadar. It's like got her foot or something, and she's already freaking the fuck out. There's nothing he can do to save her at this point, so he decides he'll redirect this balefire on her and at least save her the horror of death by Shadar, which no one should endure, and like kind of like take her out of the pattern before she even felt Shadar killing her, so it'll be without agony, and balefires her. Sammael has also been distracted by Laia's shriek at this point, and he's also turned to look at it, so he doesn't notice the Shadar wave crashing down onto him from the balconies above. So Rand's bale-firing Laia out of the pattern and then just slashes the bar of light towards Sammael's position using the same one. It's like cutting through buildings, but by the time he gets there, he's already been engulfed by Shadar and dies in the least climactic way imaginable. And I think this is the reason for the confusion, is that we were expecting something better than this. It's like, oh, while Rand was looking away, he dies.
Yeah.
Like, what? Really? This is what happened? Rand, that's what happened. I Googled it. He is dead. Yes. Like, confirmed.
He's dead.
Yeah, there's some, later on in the books, there is someone posing as Sammael, like causing cuck, but it's not him. Yeah. Confirmed by RJ in interviews that he died.
Sammael
like,
died because Rand killed Laia.
Yeah, Sammael died because Laia screamed.
Yes.
And he got distracted for like a second.
Not because of Rand balefiring. There's no balefire involved in Sammael's death.
No.
He is taken out by this fog, Shadar, because Shadar is not occupied at that point by Laia. So Rand killing her made its focus wholly move to Sammael and killed Sammael right there and then.
They're in two different places.
They're in two different places, but it's a sentient thing everywhere. It was coming over him already.
No, it's not. We just spoke about this
not
earlier,
sentient.
that Shadar is not sentient. The beginning of this very podcast.
That's not what I mean. But what I'm saying is, the fog went over Sammael, like from the top. At the same time, the fog's
but it was already doing that.
Was grabbing at Laia, and she screamed.
In a different place.
In a different place. So Rand put his attention there. He saw what's happening. He can't help her, so he said, okay, before he was already going to balefire at Sammael. Then he balefired her by undoing the connection that was with her because she's been avoiding that white smoke for literal weeks. So it was preoccupied with trying to get her for so long. But the minute she was undone, that preoccupation went away, and all of a sudden there was a new target right underneath him. And it said, cool, let's kill this.
All right. So, a couple things. Shadar is all over the city, right? It's in multiple places at once. It's vast. Leah and Sammael are not near each other.
No.
They're like across a courtyard from each other.
Yeah,
like
even further.
A wide expanse. Yes. This wave of fog that was rearing up behind Sammael was descending down towards him before Leah screamed. Leah, somewhere else, standing on a pile of rubble, screams when Shadar is already a thin tendril of it was touching her. So a different part of Shadar. Shadar doesn't focus on one person throughout the city. It's killing multiple Trollerks and things all over the city. It's a dumb fog. It's not concentrating on a single target. It's coming down on Sammael. It's attacking Leah. It's killing Trollocs over there. It's all happening at the same time. Leah screams, and Sammael looks at her. And when Rand looks back and he's sort of slashed back with the balefire after killing Leah, Sammael's already been killed by Mashadar. I don't think that Mashadar is concentrating on Leah, and by Leah being removed from the pattern a couple seconds, I don't think Mashadar would have moved faster to get to Sammael. Mashadar is moving over here. I'm gesturing to our podcast listeners as if they can see the...
Yeah, but they can see it.
But it's happening in two different places. Is this something that you had read, Vil, in your quest to make sense of what happened?
Yeah, I was reading a lot of stuff all over the shop because none of it made sense for me. And then I came across this one particular theory that interests me, like the idea that her being killed by Rand, and not just killed. It's not like, oh damn, she's dead
and removed, so she was never there.
Out of it, had an effect of on the whatever the hell Mashadar is, and
Mashadar.
it then
Mashadar.
Oh fuck yeah. Focus moved to Sammael, which was the next.
I think what maybe is misleading here is the word focus, because it doesn't have focus.
No, yes.
It hasn't been trying to get her for weeks. It doesn't know that it's one person that he's been hunting or whatever. I think the problem arises is because it's such a simple answer that is completely boring. And we're trying to find more meaning in it when there isn't. The wave was already coming down on him, and the text even says, the holy text says, it was increasing in speed.
And that he was unaware of it.
That he died. Yes, he was unaware of it. And the only reason he died, he didn't notice it, was because Leah screamed and he turned his head. It was 1 second of distraction, and then Mashadar got him. And that's it. There's nothing more to the story, in my opinion.
Previously, in this same event now, when Rand and Moradin cross the streams, Mashadar flinched away from the balefire. Why didn't it happen now when Rand balefired her and then dragged the balefire across? Like, okay, cool, it's dragging it across.
Did happen.
To
So as Rand balefires across, Mashadar recedes again.
Oh, okay.
Because when Rand...
It's already killed Sammael.
When Rand balefires Mashadar, it doesn't undo all of Mashadar is suddenly gone because Rand touched it with balefire. It's undoing little bits of it where it's touching it, and it recoils from that.
Okay.
So as Rand is sweeping the balefire back to where Sammael was standing, it recedes, and Sammael is no longer there. Rand senses that he couldn't have left, that he must have been dead. It wasn't the balefire that killed him. It was Mashadar.
Then...
Yeah, because this all happens in seconds. It's like Mashadar, and like the thing is that key is like the wave on top of Sammael is accelerating. He hears the scream, thinks for a second, balefires her, but before he can even turn around, it's already done. Sammael's already gone. He's dead. And then the balefire sweeps across, and the mist withdraws, and he's gone. It's very simple because it's lame. It should have been cooler, and it isn't. This is how I read it.
Sammael peered into the darkness lying across the square, and Mashadar oozed out of the windows, thick billows of silver-grey fog sliding together, merging as they loomed above his head. Sammael walked a little to one side, and the wave began to descend, slowly picking up speed as it fell. Rand shook his head. Sammael was his. The flows needed for balefire seemed to gather themselves despite the far echo of Catswain's voice. He raised his hand. A scream tore the darkness, a woman shrieking. So, like, in this moment when Leah's screaming, Mashadar is already descending on Sammael. And instead of Sammael being aware of what's happening around him, he's distracted by Leah's scream. And in that moment, Mashadar gets him. It's already picking up speed to get him. It doesn't need help. Sammael is distracted enough for Mashadar just to come down above him. He's unaware of it because he sort of steps to the side one a little bit. You know, he's not actively avoiding Mashadar. That is actively descending upon him. He's not reacting.
All right. I feel we've flogged a dead horse with that one. Sammael dead. Leah dead. Everyone else in that city dead.
Rand alive.
Rand alive. Rand is still up on his tower. He spends some time in contemplation on the tower. It's been a hard day, man. So before he skims the 30 minutes back to Ilion, because he doesn't know where he is, so he can't make a gateway. But he can skim. And off he goes. Skimmy, skimmy, skimmy. Back to the throne room in the king's palace where Bashir, the Usherman, and 8 of the 9 council high lords are waiting for him. Lord Brend, suspiciously not there. Rand tells Bashir that Sammael is dead, and Deshiva lets out a loud sigh. Yes, draw our attention back to Deshiva again. Bashir tells him the city is theirs, and introduces him to the High Lords, who have been eagerly awaiting him. This is where we learn that, look, once they found out that you were not trying to kill them, like that you were the Dragon Reborn's men, everybody was like, oh, okay, let's stop fighting now. So the battle is over quite quickly, with minimal casualties. One of the High Lords, Grigoran, tells him that Lord Brend is missing. Like, all 9 of them would have been here, but Lord Brend is we can't find him. Rand tells him, like, listen, you won't see him again. And they also think that he killed the king, Matan Stepanos, who disappeared 2 days ago. While Lord Brend apparently was distracted somewhere else, the king had decided to try and reclaim some of his power, and he got too close to doing that, so they think that he might have just undone him. This High Lord Grigoran offers Rand the Laurel Crown, as it's called. Laurel leaves in a circlet with little swords in between them, some pointing up and some pointing down. Not an easy crown to wear. Rand wants to know, like, first of all, why are you offering me this crown? Because I conquered you? And they're like, yeah, that too, but also because you sent us grain from Tyr, from our old enemies, and without it, we would all died of starvation ages ago. And Rand's like, oh shit, I totally forgot about that. They kept on doing that after I disappeared and didn't speak to them again about it. Apparently they were scared shitless of him, so they just kept doing it. And without it, the whole city would have been dead. So they're kind of like grateful. And since you conquered us, that is also plays a part of it. You are now our king. So Rand accepts and puts the crown on his own head. And Grigoran announces him Rand al'Thor, King of Ilion. And Deshiva takes it up a notch with a cry of, all hail Rand al'Thor, King of the world. And Rand thinks, that has a good sound to it. And we're all like, whoa, Rand.
Easy lose. I mean, Rand.
Rand al'Thor, King of the world. And so the story spread of Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn, and King of Ilion, handed the crown, now renamed as the Crown of Swords, by Matan Stepaneos himself? Or did he take it from his corpse? Who knows about all these stories? And all manner of stories spread, but for some reason all of them finished with the words, a storm is coming. And there ends our chapter and our book. And Sammael.
We'll get back to your Sammael theory in a second. I have had a thought in the ensuing minutes. But yeah, there it is. Crown of Swords. Done and dusted.
Well done, gentlemen.
Before we relitigate the bale firing of Leah and Mashadar's effect on Sammael, is there anything else, Vili, that you wanted to say about that chapter?
Again, any big fight where Rand is going to fight a Forsaken is going to be a messy magic affair. Like it's not the first time when he was battling in Redian with what's his name? Asmodean. It was the same thing. It was messy. It was over here, over there, jumping up in this tower again, windows, and like it's confusing. And I think it's written confusing so that you can be confused about it all. Like we have seen through all of these volumes that if something is meant to be understood, you will get told 4 times. This is how you need to understand it. And we go on at length about, how colorful these books can be. And then you have the grand showdown, and then it's fucking black and white. There's no context. There's men fighting in the sky. that's projected over everywhere. There's a well that's being drunk up and silver cords hanging from people's backs. Like fucking shit that doesn't happen anywhere in the books.
Rand turning into a Trolloc in Tel'aran'rhiod fighting
Yes.
Ravine.
Yes.
Yeah,
Like,
that was fucked up.
Come on, look at
wild shit.
every battle with a Forsaken. So for me now, I've gotten to the point, like, if it's going to be a Forsaken showdown, like, none of it's going to make sense. Everything's going to be hidden. Like, just fucking look for the answers forward in the books, because there isn't really anything ever that you're just left confused, itching for the next book to explain what the fuck just happened.
I mean, part of that can be frustrating, but part of it is also kind of cool because you don't think that Rand would be able to just face down a Forsaken and best them at their own game, right? Like it has to be chaotic. The messy fights actually suit Rand because the chaos of it often helps him. Like here, Mashadar, like an unknown entity, entering into it. Nynaeve happening to be in Tel'aran'rhiod with Moghedien at the time while he's fighting Ravine, Agenor killing himself, right? Agenor drew too much from the Eye of the World. That's why Rand won. So like there's a lot of stuff that actually helps Rand out in that chaos. So I like the fact that it is messy like this.
I am one of those people that as a kid would watch a movie and then the credits starts rolling. I'm like, what the fuck? This is not done. What happened? I need to know the rest of it. Like you didn't
straight to the forums.
You didn't do a good job. You didn't leave me walking around. Here's a good movie, man. I understood everything. It's like there's gaps. Now you go and you jump on like I did immediately. Like, okay, cool. Right. I know it's Moradin that's there with him. I don't need to look that up. I know that they get now. They touch tips and they're connected.
You. Well, to just add a little bit more petrol to your fire, I will say this. Sammael didn't make a sound. Rand didn't hear anything come from Sammael when Mashadar killed him. So if what Rand did to Leah meant that Sammael died slightly earlier, then Rand would have not heard the sound.
Yes.
If it meant Mashadar killing him a bit sooner.
Yes, because the undoing of her action it faster in the attack.
It happened sooner.
Yeah. Anyway,
Maybe.
I think there's a little bit in there. We got to take it like, okay, cool.
It's a cool thought, certainly. I mean, the Balefire time travel shenanigans are, again, like with the Nynaeve boat suddenly being at the bottom of the river, like that stuff is pretty fast and loose, like
that has a lot of paradoxes in itself, but it's a paradoxical tool. Like you have to understand how much it can do damage. Like you can burn so much out of the pattern that it affects like fucking things years back. You change
and how
history.
much they channel determines how far back in the pattern they remove from this. It's like a sliding scale. It's not just it's always gone. Like how long ago did that rock from the wall cease to exist so that it could fall over at a different time? It's all fucking fuzzy logic.
I love the Control Z power of Balefire. I think that it's not the problem at all in any of the understanding of the mechanics. Balefire for me works well. Timeline shenanigans though is a tough one.
All right, now that we've argued the climax here to death, I have a bunch of notes about the rest of the chapter, which are going to feel extremely anticlimactic, but there is some stuff I wanted to say here. Did you have anything else, Joe?
I hesitate to use the word climax to describe the ending of this book, but sure.
I'm gonna
final moments.
I'm gonna take my half-broken stick and break it fully over this dead horse by saying the last thing. There's a reason that Leia was such a focus, brought in at that time when she went missing, and the massive amount of time spent looking for her and going back to that same place and finding her. Like, she is too an important thing to not be involved. Rand is Ta'Veren. He went there. He left something behind there through his Ta'Veren nature to set this up for him. So she being there had to. Her bale firing is critical to this. Otherwise, we've wasted an hour's worth of book time.
Well,
Okay.
the hole in that theory is that even just her being there and distracting Sammael could also have caused that. She doesn't have to be Balefied necessarily. She could just be there and scream.
I don't think, her presence is the important thing. Not
that still satisfies your statement.
And it had to be an Aiel. It had to be a maiden because no one else would have survived that long.
Yes.
Left behind in that city.
Yeah.
So dead horse, beaten thoroughly.
Now double dead. Removed from the pattern even.
Yeah.
Let's balefire this horse.
All right, will you guys suffer my notes
Go.
from the rest of the chapter?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Let's go.
Interesting thing here. Bera and Karuna are often around with Amis, so they seem to be favored among the Aes Sedai with the wise ones, or at least with Amis. And then Rand notes that oddly, if he had ever seen three people stand together, and not just physically, it was those three, shoulder to shoulder as one. Amis, Bera, and Karuna. What? Why?
Look, Bera and Karuna are level-headed. When it comes to Aes Sedai, I actually rate those guys. They have their little power play thing that they go on. They're intelligent. They're strong in the power. I think that as the wise ones would look at them and go like, hey, out of all the Aes Sedai, you guys seem the least worst.
Yes. Very different. Bera seems to immediately, or not immediately, but is much more willing to accept the sort of the wise one authority and power structure. And Karuna is the one that sort of resisted being a noble. You know, she's Varen makes mention of it again. I've cheated in Path of Daggers when Varen's thinking about Karuna. Like she thinks about how she could do better by like just playing along with the wise ones like Varen is. It'll save her some shame and that sort of thing. But yes, they are certainly. This is the second time they're in Rand's room with Amis. John and Adley was brought with Rand from Duma as well. So I was like, oh, okay, I know that name. Why have I not kept track of this person? It's because he's not been around. But yes, he was brought by Rand from Dumas Wells and has been acting as a messenger between Rand and the armies marching to Ilion. He was one of the first on the farm, along with Eben Hoppel and Dharma Flynn and those guys. He was there. John and Adley was there when Taim starts training them the first time. And his fate is he loses control of Saidin near Ibudar at some point, and Rand accidentally kills him when he loses control of Kalandor. So don't get too attached to old John and Adley. When Rand says something about the Shadar Logoth dagger, Deshiva or Agenor mutters a curse with Paden Fane's name in it. So I wonder if Agenor knows the whole story of Paden Fane. You know, does he know what Shamal and the Troller cook parts and like using him as the hound and all that stuff? I wonder if he knows that stuff. Then,
I'm sure.
2 typos in my chapter, in my printing of the book. Firstly, Catswain says, you would have been dead if it wasn't for the efforts of Sumiko. You mean Sumitsu? Sumiko is a kinswoman in Ibudar. She didn't touch Rand.
What page was that?
Shit.
Ah, fuck, I don't know.
See mine now.
Now you've started something. I'm going to get my Kindle.
And then the other thing is, in my book, it says the square of Tammuz.
Tammuz?
The Illuminator.
Yeah. No, that's not right.
It's supposed to be Tammuz, right?
Tammuz.
My book says Tammuz. Yeah. So 2 typos. While you guys go through your books and see if you find the Sumitsu Sumiko oddity that we have called out before, is like, this is going to be confusing to us. I mean, it happened to the actual printing of my book. When Rand says, you know, everyone clear out of the room, Agenor prepares a weave to render all the Aes Sedai and everyone in the room like in pain in such a way that no one can channel. Like he's already preparing the weaves, and Rand's like, no, stop that. It's fine. Don't do that.
Take it easy.
I also have here finally some benefit from the maidens treating Rand like a son or a brother the whole time. He doesn't have much modesty left, so he just gets up naked in front of all of them. Proud of Rand for that.
Yeah, it does come back to him though. By the time he's happy that his head is inside the cupboard, because maybe he does have a little bit of shame.
Well, he doesn't until Corell says, and what a beautiful bottom it is as well. When Catswain says she's going to spank him on his bottom, Corell makes a comment about his bottom, and he's like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not. Corell is this other Aes Sedai that's also performed healing on Rand, and she's, you know, second only to Sumitsu and Dharma Flynn. She's also super intrigued by Dharma Flynn's healing, and off page they have a lot of interactions. She later bonds Dharma Flynn as her warder.
Who bonds him?
Corell.
Corell.
the other Aes Sedai that's in the room here that we haven't read about, that Cadsuane says, thanks to the efforts of Samitsu, or she says Sumiko in my book, Samitsu, Dharma Flynn, and Corell here, you are alive. And this is the other Aes Sedai that we said wasn't present in the healing previously, but has obviously also participated in some subsequent healing sessions after that event. And the one that I said is second only to Samitsu in terms of Aes Sedai healing.
My book says, Corell and Samitsu.
Yeah, mine says Sumiko.
My book says Sumitsu.
Yeah, interesting.
I've got my Kindle, the hardcover, and the paperback. I'm going to compare them all while you guys talk.
Check the paperback, because that's the one I have, this one.
Yeah? What page?
I don't know, Joe.
698.
Jesus, brew.
I have here that it's cool that Rand can read Min's tone when she says to him that she needs to be with him. He's like, she must have had a viewing. Yep, spot on. I also took note of the fact that Rand, when he's walking weakly to the cupboard, he can't let anyone know, including the Ashaman. Like, if he lets them know that he's weak, he might lose control of them, which is pretty scary.
And correct.
The thing that Cadsuane needs to teach Rand and the Ashaman is, so this is from the fandom wiki, from her conversations with Sorelia in The Path of Daggers and also with Varen in Winter's Heart, Cadsuane says she will teach them laughter and tears. She also speaks of teaching him the difference between being strong and hard. And then Rand has stated that Cadsuane pushed him on the path he is now on and is learning to be human again. Rand then sends word with Naif to the Black Tower to inform the inhabitants that they are men, not weapons, but it is not clear if the message will have effects on the men who seem to be changing in a negative fashion. It did have an effect on those who didn't change. So Cadsuane does teach Rand this thing, or helps him, sets him on this path to learn these differences between being strong and being hard. And that does in turn affect the rest of the Ashaman when he sends the message back.
It's just your book, Moritz. My paperback also says Samitsu.
Wow. I loved how when Rand says that they're going to kill Sammael today, nobody reacts except Agenor, who looks startled. And
yeah, like, wait, you're killing, we're killing Forsaken? Some of these Forsaken are pretty cool guys,
Well, I don't think that Agenor necessarily...
Maybe just have a chat to them.
I don't think Agenor necessarily likes Sammael and wants to prevent that. I think he's just like, he knows what a threat that can be. But behind closed doors, he'd be like, okay, yeah, get the fuck rid of Sammael. Like, that's one less...
But also,
contender for neighbors.
Rand killing Forsaken is not a good precedent to be setting, in his opinion.
It's not.
No.
When Agenor seems to let his gaze linger on Min and lick his lips, Rand opens the gateway near him so that he has to leap out of its way.
Taking off his hand will teach him some discipline.
I'm so stoked that Rand, because I'm so desperate for Rand to always just show everyone else that he's boss, just demonstrate to them that you are calling the shots here, and opening a gateway and almost slicing the hand off a Forsaken is a pretty cool way of doing that.
Moritz, Sumiko in the hardcover edition of The Orbit.
Here we go.
So thank God I got all 3 copies out.
But it's just so funny that that's that thing we said is going to be confusing, and here it is. The editors missed it.
The editors are confusing.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't blame us.
It's very cool. Davram Bashir's emblem on his flag is the King's Penny Blossom, which doesn't die back in even the Saldaean winters, and after a fire, they are the first to return. A blossom nothing could kill. That's a cool flower to have on your sigil.
I remember that. It's like if you're going to have flowers on your sigil.
Yes. There's actually something.
Make it that one.
There's actually something badass about having a flower that's impossible to the sort of the soft nature of it as your sigil is also making a statement, which is cool. I love how Bashir refers to Matt as young Matt. It's a sort of really familiar phrasing, and how this is one of the 5 great captains. He still gives Matt credit, where credit is due. Young Matt and I had figured this thing out together. It's just, always that thing about lending Matt's skills some credence or some weight. Then, cool read on Sammael, that Liz knew that he would never relinquish something he thought was his, however tenuous his claim. So Rand knows going into Ilion itself and capturing the city would draw Sammael out, because Sammael wouldn't let that go. That's knowledge only Liz would have. And then also, obviously, triggering all the wards and traps at the same time. I thought that combination was really great. What else? You mentioned most of my notes here. When Rand tells Moradin that he can go to Caemlyn, to the Black Tower, and that he doesn't need to live afraid of Aes Sedai, it makes him frown. It's because Rand is afraid of Aes Sedai. Like, as he says it, he goes, why did I react that way? I think Rand is still afraid of them. I always thought Rand was firing balefire at Sammael when his beam crosses with Moradin's. I'd completely forgotten that it's just at Mashadar, at some other non-Sammael event.
It's just one of the millions of times he fires balefire willy-nilly into the sky.
So Moradin's balefire is of the true power. I wonder if that has an effect on how they interacted.
Well, yeah, that's what I gathered from that. Because I mean, it's a major event. It affects both of them.
Yeah. And that is it. That is it for my notes.
This is where, spoilers for the final book, but how Rand is able to use the true power in the final battle. It's because of this. His connection to Moradin.
I can't remember. It must be. I can't remember how he uses the true power in the final battle, but what I do remember is how he uses the true power to break the, what are those? The male Adam? What's that called? The Bands of Dominion or something? The Dominion Band? When Semirog has that on him and she's making him strangle Min, he uses the true power to destroy the Dominion Band and then lashes out it.
All right.
Because he can't channel the one power while he's wearing the male Adam. She had him dead to rights, and he used the true power to get himself out of it. That's way before the final battle.
Yeah.
All right. Well, through all of that deliberation, did you guys pick a favorite moment?
Yep.
Vil, what's your favorite moment?
Matt's bargain with the sea folk. It's brilliant. He calls her you daughter of the sands and bilge water and all kinds of new words that I learned. It was great. I loved it. And Matt just...
all those old memories, giving him all the best old insults, like knowing exactly who everyone is and where they're from and all that stuff. Yeah, it was very fucking cool. Jody, your visible reaction.
It says it was the same one.
You chose the same one.
I have it in writing as well.
You actually have.
Matt using Tavernus plus old memories to one-up the sea folk.
Amazing.
It is great. Like,
yeah.
Before I tell you mine, I'll tell you Richard Jackson's, which is, I assume everyone will pick Matt's Master of the Blades, and that's hard to beat. So I'm going instead with heart-wrenching. Leah overcoming the corruption of Mordeth /Mash or Shadar Logoth long enough to recognize Rand and then feeling shame for what she has become. Like, that's why she runs off. Like, she sees Rand and she realizes he's the Karakan and then runs away. So I had read Richard's contribution before I had picked my favorite moment. So I have now quite deftly avoided exactly the favorite moment that the two of you have chosen. So it's still Matt related though. And it is just the fact that Matt takes over. The way that Nynaeve and Elaine put Matt forward. So the whole thing, not just the Blades Baird thing, but like him telling them what a golem is and them not listening, and then him sort of taking charge, and then even taking charge of Nynaeve after the fact with his sort of his swipe at her about the bad bargain that she made. And then when she reacts, he's like, haha, he's sort of like on a roll. He's like letting it ride, you know, he's like, oh, not bad shooting in the dark.
Yeah, let it ride. That's a very apt
yes.
for Matt. I'll let it ride.
And then I've got two honorable mentions, which is the scene with Merrick after they step through Sammael's gateway. Like, I actually really enjoyed that. That really resonated with me. And then another one is Rand making Dashiva leap out of the way with that gateway, or making Agenor leap out of the way. Not step out of the way, you have to leap out of its way. So it's like really making a Forsaken jump, which is great.
That's also a little bit about don't stare at my girl's ass and lick your lips at the same time.
It's 100% his motivation.
If you take someone who's just been introduced to the Aiel, but we don't have the breakaway, and we don't have the Couladin showdown, and we don't have the Shaido mix, and you let them read that chapter with Merrick, and you take out references that they're actually the baddies in that, you'd go like, man, that's what a great Aiel chapter, because it's just raw Aiel faced with it, and it's just like, let's sing our song, dance the spears.
I don't think there are even references to them being baddies in there, because it's from their point of view, and to them they're doing the honorable, the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great chapter. Like I love that special mention for me as well. It was moving.
Yeah.
It felt like, man, this is not the way that I want to feel about Shaido dying.
No. Okay, so now, after many hours of recording, we don't have to dive too deep into this. I mean, we do it as we go along, but let's talk about the book as a whole. Is there anything that you guys wanted to talk about? Any specific character arcs? We always sort of focus on the pacing and stuff. Jody has some notes that he wants to go through. So what you got there, Joe?
I have notes on paper with a pen.
Whoa, look at you.
This is
fancy.
Yeah, like old school, bro. I've got like favorite moments from the books in general. What I liked, there's a general theme running throughout this book of Willie used the same word in the beginning of the recording. Comeuppance.
A lot of comeuppance.
Moghedien gets mind trapped. Elviaran gets Masana's attention, which she thinks is a good thing, but is a bad thing. Elida gets usurped by Elviaran. Galina is captured by Sevanna and Therava. Colavia kills herself after Rand puts her in her place. Everybody who's trying to fuck with somebody gets their comeuppance. Suroth loses Morghese. She has her. Rand kills Sammael. And the Windfinders get a shitty bargain. Those are my notes. So, fuck all you smug bastards.
Crown of comeuppance it should be.
Yes.
Those
are my notes for the entire
have a feeling that this book could have been called Matt the Man of Memory. For me, this entire book, we had the Perrin Arch before, saving the two rivers and that massive development. There isn't enough space for Perrin to fill this book with massive stories, so there isn't a lot for Perrin. But Matt really dominates his character arc along with Elaine. For me, is the big domination, and we have got very light ending of Egwene in this book. We haven't read about her now this whole episode. I think last time we just touched on her. She also has a major development, but for me, the biggest thing and my favorite moment of the book is Matt and Matt's whole development, bringing his memories in, finally bringing his Tavera in, and not for gambling. Like initially he did all of these things. It's like with my dice cup and coin, I can just ride my life. But eventually he's like, hey, I can do more with this. And this is what this book has done. It's taken Matt from being the guy that plays shoe dice in the corner to the general that made the plans for Bashir. I mean, they lost no men except for Wyraman's men. Like, and we all knew that was going to happen with Wyraman.
Wyraman is still alive.
Idiot.
Die already.
Idiot.
Yeah.
But
no,
yes,
it's true, Vil. Like he uses his Tavernus to like find the bowl. He's sort of taken all this responsibility when Rand sends him to find Elaine and Egwene and to rescue them. He's leading the band of the Red Hand, which is now of considerable size. He's taken on Olver, like he's really stepping into that sort of leadership role.
He's given his army to Egwene. The band, like those guys, he's already equipped her with another army with Gareth. Like there's so much that Matt interplays in this book. This is not really a book for me about Rand. There's like, okay, Rand is out the box and he's now skittish, and that's how he remains this whole book.
Yeah.
Nynaeve, okay, big moment, block's broken. Like that's a very big moment, Jody.
And married now.
And married. Like we should celebrate those things, but I don't tend to like to celebrate forced marriages because Land didn't have a say. It was just...
But he wanted it.
I was about to say, Land got his comeuppance.
You mentioned Elaine, Vil. Like her growth in this book is huge. What else? We did get some of Egwene and like just the beginnings of her building a power base in the Rebel Aes Sedai. Like now she's getting these people sort of like swearing fealty to her. Like, okay, cool. She's got Thowlane and Theodrin
coming up to the front.
Morel and there was another Aes Sedai with Morel. They've sworn fealty to Egwene now as well. And she's calling in Sheriam and the rest, and she's starting to make moves now. Like she's been paralyzed in this position of like token Amelin for a little while, but with Swan's help, she's starting to build something, and that's exciting because we all know how I feel about Egwene.
Nynaeve also healed Swan in the end.
Oh yeah,
very very big
huge.
things. There's
So
the
much
healings
happened.
of stilling. That's like there's a lot that was learned, and there's also a lot that was extracted from a Gideon. So I mean, this is the book where everyone levels up. Like traveling now becomes a thing. Skimming.
Gideon levels down.
Yeah, she gets caught in a mind trap. Yeah, but
Elida down.
But the we are gearing up for a battle, and everyone gets weapons. Like the armies are building
the final battle, one might call it.
Yes, some might call it the final battle.
This has also been the longest 8 days of my life. This book.
I think it's 7 days. I mean, I don't want to split hairs, but
shut up, Moritz.
I mean, yes, it is. It's incredible. We always talk about pacing at the end of these books, right? And this one, I feel like my memory of it is completely bonkers, right? Like I used to think this whole Ibudar thing stretched out so long, but for all the reasons we've mentioned a million times before, sure, it wasn't all sword fights and stuff, but actually, it's all great. I enjoyed this book thoroughly.
Yeah.
I thought it was fucking awesome.
I'm loved this book as well now that we're done with it. Good old book.
A couple other things happened. Just the introduction of Moradin and the concept of the true power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those minor events.
That little thing.
The Gholam.
Yeah.
Who's not dead yet.
The hunt for the...
Him too.
No, the hunt for the Black Arger in the tower has begun. Let's not forget the death of Pedro Denial. And the forming of Morgase's party, including Bulwer, right? Like that's all happening now. The Seanchan making a massive advance. They've taken the Fortress of the Light. So Amadisia is theirs, and now they've just landed at Ibudar. Oh. They're about to just take charge. The arrival of a certain Cadswain. Huge.
Yes.
Huge. And you touched on Colavir's fall earlier as well. I mean, there is so much stuff. When we list all these things, it feels impossible that all those events have been crammed into one of these books, and yet here we are. It all happened.
We say that
every
at
time.
The end of every book. Like if you go back and just start listening.
But isn't that amazing?
Holy shit. Yeah.
I really like that.
It's almost as if Robert Jordan planned these books. Did a good job.
It's almost like he did a good job. Gerald had some comments about the book as a whole.
Let it rip, Jerry.
He says, my previous email talked about the slog. So this is me editorializing again. Gerald obviously considers Crown of Swords as part of the slog, which I don't. I mean, for all the reasons we just mentioned. And how going through the book slowly at the same time as the podcast means you get to get all the nuances out of the text. So it was great to find all those nuggets of gold. But then also the aftermath of Dumai's Wilds and Kyrian, the Bowl of the Winds, and the fun Matt, Elaine, Nynaeve shenanigans that went along with that. The taking of Ilion and the crossing of the Balefire streams, the cool practice sword battle, and then the fog, Egwene and getting people to swear fealty, Lan running off to find Nynaeve, Margideon getting mind trapped, and of course Cadswain arriving. Oh, yay, whoop.
And everyone's favorite.
Gerald pretty much echoing everything that we've been saying. So, Willie, did you already say what your favorite moment from the book? Oh, no, it was.
No, that was me. Favorite moment from
what
the
book. What
book.
have you said, Matt?
Yes, Matt's character arc is mine in this book.
Yes.
This is his book.
Yeah. How about you, Joe?
No, that's what I thought. The comeuppance.
Oh, the comeuppance.
That's my favorite moment.
Okay.
It's kind of like the Empire Strikes Back for the bad guys in this case, you know.
Yeah.
Like the second movie when everyone's down on their luck, all the bad guys are down on their luck, and it ends with like Sammael dying and, you know, Mogideon's mind trapped and the Black Archers, like everything's going bad for the side of the dark at this moment in this book. I imagine there's going to be a resurgence of that in the next book.
Yeah.
We need to see them come back a little bit and pose a bit of a threat.
My favorite moment is hard to choose. There's a couple things. I mean, there's some obvious ones like Nynaeve's block getting removed, healing of Stilling. Those are all cool, like very specific moments. But for me, things that stood out a lot, the fog attack thing, that whole event is like a big moment for me. Matt's relationships with Birgitte and Elaine, I really enjoyed. Like, I love Matt's relationship with Birgitte in particular, is really fucking cool. And it's just like brought right to the surface with that Barashandan Lord, response to the thing that she says about truth's honor and all that sort of stuff. Another section that I didn't expect to hit as hard was that march into Kyrian after Dumai's Wells, that slow ratcheting up of the tension, like them riding up to Kyrian, and then coming into the city and everything's quiet, and then encountering the guards at the gates, and then getting through there, and then getting to the palace itself, and then having the Ashaman like wrapping up those guards in the one power, and then going in through the halls and like their footsteps echoing through the hall, and then they get to the throne room and Kolavir is there, and then Rand's Taveran nature, like making Kolavir confess to everything that happened, and then eventually she passes out and everyone streams out. Like that whole stretch was, I thought, just really, really well written and really stuck with me. But my favorite moment that literally I almost cried, I was so happy when I read this, was Elaine besting those Aes Sedai that thought they had her in a trial. Like when they were trying to when they were like the fucking cold anger I felt at them even hinting at like taking a slipper to her. Are you fucking kidding me? And then Elaine getting that note from Carrot and then just like, no, this is bullshit. And she just puts her foot down and they all, like, they are slack-jawed. Merilil and, like, some of the other Aes Sedai are, like, their mouths are agape. They're like, oh, fuck. And then Van Dien sort of going, okay, no, this is good. I like this. Yeah, don't worry. We'll fall into place. You are the strongest here. And yes, you're right. The Amelin sent you. Okay, you called our bluff. You're in charge now. Just fucking love that. That's definitely my favorite.
You're an Elaine fan.
I mean,
you and Vannon will have to fight for position as her number one.
And then we've got some favorite moments from the book from both Richard and Gerald as well. Richard goes, my favorite moment of the book is Matt being Master of the Blades. This is before when Richard said that he's not going to pick that as his favorite moment from the section, but he says it comes out of nowhere.
Jokes.
And I imagine it makes everyone else say, what the fuck was that? And it is described like everyone's like, huh? How did Matt do that? Which is great. Gerald's got 4 favorite moments. Gerald, busy man. The practice sword fight, which, yes, is a very cool fight. The conversation with Kolavir and her being affected by the Taveran nature of Rand. The growth of the Ashaman in both stature, ability, and presence. If you think about it, the Ashaman really like announced their arrival at Dumai's Wells, right? That's the first time you see suddenly what an entrance they make. And then by the end of this book, it's just one book. So just in these 7 or 8 days, they are a recognized presence. Like, they are talking over Cad Swain. They are Rand's trusted advisors. Like he sends everyone out of the room so he can talk to them. And now they're charging into Ilion into battle. John and Adley and the other Ashaman are attacking Sammael and fighting him in the hill forts. The Ashaman, I was worried that when I reread the series, the Ashaman would feel like they are just suddenly thrown into the mix and we just have to accept that they are now also a force. But it is actually done so well and mostly off page, which I think helps and, works in their favor. And they only drop in to do these like huge things. And you're like, oh, fuck. Yes. Okay. They are serious. So, I resonate with that favorite moment, Gerald. Like their presence now is established and unquestionable. Like, they are large and in charge.
This is how I remember them before we started this recap. And then like the first 6 books, you're like, where are these guys? What's happening? Like, because they are from now on such a major part of the story.
That's all I remember from Path of Daggers is the fights with the Sean Chan and the Ashaman and the Lightning and Kalandor and all that stuff. That's all I remember from it. They are huge. Then Gerald's last one is just how much the Aes Sedai think of themselves and how rubbish their knowledge really is.
Haha, Aes Sedai.
Okay, gentlemen, we've done it. We are halfway through the series, which means that next time on Blood and Ashes, we will be starting The Path of Daggers. I always thought it was A Path of Daggers, but it's The Path of Daggers.
Ooh. Pedantic, are we? Here we go.
just in case you thought I might have dropped my pedantry. No.
Oh.
We will be doing 2 chapters. First, the prologue called Deceptive Appearances, and chapter 1 called To Keep the Bargain.
I've started already. Last night,
As have I.
I got up to just after the meeting in the Black Hills.
Okay. Which was cool. I've got a lot to say about that.
Before we switch over to the ice.
I've almost finished chapter 1. I've also just gone ahead.
Right.
And it picks up right here. You know, like it's like
no, I haven't got that far.
Immediately after. You'll see. In fact, you will see in our next episode. But until we do that recording, I will say unto thee, sleep well and wake.
Adios, everybody.
Very good evening.